Okay, councillors, it's gone past the time. Just take this opportunity to welcome you all to the Fermanagh Northern District Council Policy and Resources Committee meeting this evening, Wednesday the 14th of December 2022 in the Grange Omagh and via WebEx. Just a few prelims. I'd just like to welcome you all here to this evening again, and again with our Chief Executive being in the chamber, other directors and officers joining via WebEx, and we have our Democratic Services Manager here, Peter, and also Selena in IT in the chamber, and also members of the press and the general public. You're very welcome. Please respect the chair and each other and our officers at all levels. The 3-minute rule will apply. The running order for the meeting is a 12-item agenda with various pieces of correspondence, one motion, and part 2 business. And I ask for your cooperation to get all the business completed this evening, as we're coming near the end of the year before going to Christmas recess. Part 2 business will be brought forward to after item 7, and that includes items 11 and 12. Items 11 and 12 will be brought forward to after item 7. Then it'll be item 9, the motion. Then item 8, the correspondence, and then item 10, any urgent or relevant business. So with those few prelims out of the way, we'll carry on with the meeting. Okay, first on our agenda, as usual, is apologies, and we'll go to the group leaders as per usual. And it's the Sinn Féin group leader who's in the chamber, Councillor Tommy Maguire.
Margaret, Caherly, thank you, Chair. To Birch, Lescale, Loden Group of Sinn Féin and Ock. There are 2 apologies from the Sinn Féin group tonight. Councillor Anne-Marie Fitzgerald and Councillor Padraig Kelly. And I think you're aware already, Councillor Glenn Campbell's running late.
Yep,
he hopes to join shortly. Margaret, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maguire. Next, we're on to the Ulster Unionist Party group leader who's in the chamber, and that's Councillor Victor Warrington.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not aware of any apologies this evening. I think we're all here, and the Matthew Bell is here as well. So no, we're all okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Warrington. Now on to the Democratic Unionist Party, and we'll get Councillor Paul Robinson, who's joining via WebEx.
No apologies, Chair, but Councillor Stevenson run a wee bit late.
Okay, thank you. Now on to the Social Democratic and Labour Party, and it's Councillor Mary Gardaí.
Thank you very much, evening Chair. Earl, 2 apologies from our grouping, Councillor Gannon and Councillor Blake. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Right, on to now single parties and independents. Aware of any? Councillor McAleer.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, Councillor O'Coffey is not about tonight. He's got another engagement on, so he's not going to be about for this evening's meeting.
Thank you. Okay, I think that covers our apologies. Item 2, to sign the minutes and confidential minutes of the previous meeting held on the 9th of November 2022, which I've already done. Item 3, declarations of interest. Councillor Stephen McCann.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, item 6.2.
Okay, item 6.2, Councillor McCann. Okay, thank you. Councillor Mary Gardaí.
Thank you, Chair. Item 6.2 also has been a member of Trillick GFC. Thank you.
Thank you. Into the chamber with Councillor Emmett McAleer.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, under item 6.2, there's a tender relating to Southwest College, and as a full-time employee, I'll declare an interest there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, if I may, item 7.1, the staff matters report, please.
Okay, thank you, Chief Executive. And another councillor's just popped up here, and it's via WebEx. Councillor Stephen Donnelly.
Thanks, Chair. Item 4.5 as a political nominee to the Education Authority.
Okay, thank you. And if there are any other, they can be declared obviously during the meeting. Okay, on to item 4, and it's matters arising from our Policy and Resources Committee meeting held on Wednesday, the 9th of November, 2022. And it was in the Grange Oma. So take it page by page. Page 1. Page 2. Page 2, Chief Executive.
Thank you, Chair. Just to draw members' attention to the correspondence received from the Department of Education dated the 20th of November. Members, this was in response to the Council's letter regarding free school meals provision. We had a couple of specific queries regarding the clarification as to how the current policy is not in contravention of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child and the year groups that the Department's considering for the provision of universal free school meals. The latter question is responded or detailed in the final paragraph of the letter, and a number of options are being considered, but there's no particular reference to the first part of the Council's request.
Okay, thank you, Chief Executive. 2 speakers in the chamber wishing to come in. And can we have a proposer and seconder, first of all, to note, please? Councillor Emmett McAleer.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'll propose to note the letter, and just to pick up on a couple of points noted within. There's talk there of within the correspondence about the provision of £13.50 a week, and over a 7-day week, that's £1.92 per day to feed a child. So I'm not sure what sort of subsidised shops this person who's responded, or her department for the education colleagues shop in, but I'm unaware of anywhere locally that would provide a healthy, nutritious meal for a child at that price. Not to mention that I presume the children that we would all know would probably eat more than 1 meal a day. So I don't know why that's included. It's kind of an irrelevance to what we had requested. I do look forward to the consultation that's planned for the new year. Hopefully it is going to be early in the new year. And I would propose that we respond to the letter asking that we are continue to be kept in the loop and kept updated on the progress, and indeed to be included as an interested party in terms of any consultation or any further discussion on that as it's finalised. I would also suggest that the option for a universal free school meal being available to all children full-time education up to P3 is dismissed out of hand, and that we as a council continue to push for the option where all full-time pupils would be able to access universal free school meal as the ultimate outcome of the review. And I note that's one of the options that the department is looking at. And as the Chief Executive quite rightly points out, the department conveniently failed to respond to the first query that we had asked in relation to how the inaction and the continued inaction on free school meals isn't a contravention of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. So I would request also that we follow up on seeking an answer for that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McAleer. You've heard there's probably 3 parts to that proposal. Further to proposal to note. Councillor Matthew Bell from the chamber.
Thank you, Chair, and I'll second I'll propose a second the noting. This is a welcoming letter. It's good to see that there is movement on the provision of free school meals, even if it is up to P3. But if that is the option to go with, that it's an improvement of what we have. Obviously, I would prefer the second option. As well, the Ulster Unionist Party, as policy, we do support the free school meals, and I'll happily second Councillor McAleer's proposal because, well, I think it's rude not to at least reference the questions that the council asked. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bell. Right, no other speakers in the chamber or on WebEx. I think we're all agreed with the proposal by Councillor McAleer, seconded by Councillor Bell. Okay, not seeing any dissent. That's agreed. Okay, still on page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. Page 7. Page 7, Chief Executive.
Thank you, Chair. Just in relation to the second resolution on page 7, which related to the request that we make representations regarding the funding position for Sorry Grove supported accommodation, we have received 2 letters. The first from the Department of Health, the second from the Department for Communities. Both have really just set out the broad budgetary provision and a willingness to continue to work with the operator, but there's certainly no indications within either letter that further funding will be forthcoming for the facility.
Okay, thank you, Chief Executive. And first of all, can we have a proposer and seconder to note the 2 pieces of correspondence, please? I'll go to the chamber now. I'm with Councillor Emmett McAleer.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, again, I'll propose to note the correspondence. I do note it with concern. I suppose if we look at the DFC response, first off, again, both letters reference the hold up or the departments being hamstrung due to the lack of an active government at the minute. But it is very concerning when we look at supported accommodation and we look at other cuts and removal of services in other areas, such as the Regina Shelley House up in Belfast. And I would have to say that the correspondence provided is one that provides little reassurance at this time. And in terms of the Department of Health response, I would be likewise concerned by it, and in particular the concluding line from Mr. May, where he states that whether this continues to be funded via Action for Children or with a new service provider, I suppose the implicit threat there of privatisation of this valued and valuable service is one that I would have serious concerns about. Maybe I suppose some of the councillors who are more local to that area might have further proposals to make, but I just note this correspondence with a lot of concern, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McAleer. Now we go to WebEx. First up is Councillor Diana Armstrong.
Chair, I'm happy to give way to Councillor Coyle as she had proposed this. So I would like to come in with some comments and ask Councillor Coyle if she'd like to come in ahead of me, please. Thank you.
Okay, we can do that. Councillor Debbie Coyle.
Thank you,
Are
Chair.
you happy, first of all, are you happy to second the note?
Yes, I am happy to second it, yeah.
Okay, no problem. Go ahead.
Very disappointed, although I do know that Gemma Dolan, you know, our local MLA, has also been doing quite a lot of work on this issue, and I think that there have been conversations local that that were quite promising for the new year, but nothing actually promised.
Sorry, Councillor Coyle, we're losing you a wee bit there.
Oh, well, I mean, that 13 young people could be made homeless is an absolute disgrace, and you know, a little bit more, and we definitely don't want it privatised.
Sorry, Councillor Coyle, you're being cut out there. We're losing you.
Keep these
So we're not getting
young
you.
people with a roof over their head.
Councillor Coyle, we're not picking you up.
Okay. Yeah, I've got a really bad signal and I apologise. I can hear you, like, okay, you may not be able to hear me, but very disappointed, and I listened to see what Diane has got, but I'm very, there needs to be more done to stop these people from becoming homeless. We can't allow that to happen in Enniskillen. I mean, my area is End North, and I understand that, but this...
No, we're losing you again.
Facility houses children, young people.
Yeah. In the meantime, we'll move on to Councillor Armstrong, Diane Armstrong.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's unfortunate Debbie couldn't be heard there. Chair, last week was Homeless Awareness Week, and to mark that, the Service Provider Action for Children and Rosari Grove residents created an art project. I went along and visited the young people in the art project, and I really have to say they created a very powerful statement through their artwork. The written messages attached from the young people detailed the positive impact the secure accommodation had on them, and they clearly articulated the great anxiety that Rosari Grove will cease to exist due to the funding issues on the 31st of March. I understand the trust funds 31% and supporting people funds 69% of the budget. So currently there are 13 residents, as Councillor Coyle said, 4 young people aged under 18. There's 1 Syrian national with no family network living in this country, and he's currently undertaking vocational studies at Southwest College. I hear he's very talented, a very talented student with the potential to gain employment when he finishes his studies. There are other young people who rely on this for their health and well-being, a place where they're supported and valued before they can transition into independent living. Indeed, I detected such anxiety coming from the young people about this and about other pressures, such as the negative messaging we have out, externally, that, I felt, it was my place to try and assure them that, there is some positivity and we need to search and find for it as elected representatives. And if Rossari Grove is to close, where will the young Syrian student go among other residents, and how will this impact on his career and potential? And I'm very worried about this and feel that the Permanent Secretary's responses, both of them, do not do justice to the urgency of this decision. And I'd like to be reassured by receiving confirmation exactly what actions are currently being taken, what service providers are being approached, what organise.
Councillor Armstrong, we've lost you. Okay, you're completely gone there. Can everyone else in WebEx hear us?
Yes, Chairman.
Yes, Chair. Yes.
Okay, we've lost Councillor Coyle and Councillor Armstrong at this time. Okay, I think it's been proposed and seconded. Comments have been made. I think we'll just leave it at that for now. Okay, thank you. Councillor McCloughery, you're wanting to come in?
Thank you, Chair. I believe Councillor Armstrong had a specific proposal to make, and I wonder, would you allow the leeway if it did come back, if she did manage to get back in, that she could conclude this matter?
Well, we'll bring it in under any urgent and relevant business.
Thank you,
At
Chair.
that stage.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just not,
Folks, okay?
I would do it myself, but I'm just not exactly sure of the word
Oh,
that
that's
he
right.
was going to propose.
We'll bring it in then. Okay. Thank you. Still on page 7. Page 8. Page 9. Page 10. Page 10, Chief Executive.
Chair, just at the bottom of page 10, to draw members' attention to the response from the Education Authority, and this is regarding additional funding for youth clubs. And you'll have seen from the letter that there's certainly no prospect of additional funding being forthcoming, and the reference is made to the significant pressures on the Education Authority's budget. There is the offer of a meeting with the head of local youth services if this is something that members would wish to progress.
Okay, thank you, Chief Executive. And to the Chamber with Councillor Barry McElduff.
Thank you, Chair. I want to propose, if this hasn't been
Sorry, can you propose noting first?
Yeah, I'll happy to do that. But I want to propose that we seek to engage the Education Authority in our regular meetings, regular in inverted commas. Wee bit of resistance maybe on the EA side. I know they're busy, of course, but we're in the practice of meeting them maybe twice a year, and that has fallen. There never was tremendous enthusiasm on the part of the Education Authority to have that forum, that exchange. But if we could seek an opportunity in January or February to re-engage EA on that level where there's directors present, and just also on page 10, I know we gave this a good airing last night, the cost of living crisis, but there's a parallel matter, and it's the cost of doing business. And I want to propose that we write to the Department for Economy to ask, is there any support coming down the track from the department for businesses in respect of energy costs? People say things like there will be capital funding call in the autumn, and they'll say mentoring, but I get it. I've heard businesses locally ask people in the know, is there funding for cost of doing business? And people don't fully understand that question. They say, oh yes, there's capital funds coming online, there's mentoring support. But really what they're asking is, can they get some support towards energy, towards electric, towards heating, towards matters like that? And I'm aware of 2 businesses that are asking me to establish, and I'm laying the responsibility for the creation of such a fund with the Department for Economy. If that, so I would like to propose to write till the permanent secretary on that basis.
Chief Executive.
Chair, very happy to do so. May I just ask Councillor McElduff if he wouldn't mind caveating it slightly? I think we may have issued a letter to that effect following our special meeting on the cost of living crisis, and I don't believe we've had a response. It's just if we have done it, we'd maybe do a reminder. If we haven't, certainly we could progress it exactly as proposed.
Thank you.
Okay, just to, you've proposed the noting of this correspondence. You've also proposed that we write to EA regarding hopefully a meeting early in the new year, and also a letter to the FE, and you've heard the Chief Executive's comments regarding support for energy costs, etc. Okay, have we a seconder for all of that? Noting, and Councillor Roy Crawford in the chamber is seconding the noting and the 2 letters. Okay, thank you. So that was page 10, page 11, page 12, page 13. 13, Chief Executive.
Chair, just page 13, 2 letters here, but I'll just make reference to the first, which is the, again, second resolution near the top of the page. This was that we would write to the Department for Justice seeking details on the cost of escort services, special duties and associated activities for the gold mining industry. Response from the Permanent Secretary, who has advised that these are operational matters for the PSNI and that we may wish to raise these matters directly with the Chief Constable, and members will be aware that we have an existing freedom of information request into that effect with the PSNI.
Okay, one of these subjects is on the go probably for at least a year. So in the chamber we have Councillor Emmett McAleer.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'll first off proposing the noting of this, and I appreciate probably your own view there as stated, and indeed what the Chief Executive is saying. Tim, my reading of it, this correspondence shows one of 2 things. It's either a lack of knowledge on what's been requested or a lack of willingness to share the detail of that knowledge. These are important and pressing questions, and unfortunately they persist, and the various statutory bodies and organisations seem very content to keep sending this council from pillar to post, and I'm here to say tonight, simply not good enough. It's not good enough for Mananoma District Council as the local authority, and it's not good enough for our residents. I would like to ask the question, how can we get to the bottom of this matter, which has already cost the public purse, at a conservative estimate, I would say millions of pounds. So a further proposal tonight is that our council officers follow up on this as a matter of urgency, taking into consideration, as the Chief Executive referenced, the number of letters and number of communications that have been sent to us on the various to the various organisations, and the responses that have been received or are still outstanding, and that report, a future report, is brought back to this committee, because letters and correspondence is going monthly or more than monthly on the subject, and the reason that is, probably much to the dismay of some in the row in front of me, is that we're not getting any answers on this. So that's my proposal, and I make it in good faith and hope that other councillors can support it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McAleer. Okay, you've proposed the noting, and you proposed second. Your proposal is that council officers follow up urgently on this matter, and a future report be brought to committee. That'll be obviously, if that happens, it'll be 2023. Have we got a seconder for the noting of the correspondence? You're second in the noting, Councillor McClarty. Okay, have we got a seconder either in the chamber or via WebEx? Councillor Armstrong's hand still up, I believe. Councillor Armstrong? Diana?
Yes, Chair, I'm back. I just wondered if there was a chance just to finish off my proposal at some stage.
Any
before we-
any urgent and relevant business we have agreed in your absence?
That's okay. Thank you very much,
Not
Chair.
there. Did you hear Councillor McAleer's proposals there?
No, I didn't hear them in full, Chair.
Okay, thank you. If you can lower your hand, please. Is anyone in the chamber or via WebEx willing to second Councillor McAleer's proposal? Oh, we have a couple of people coming up now. And we'll go to, first of all, we'll go to the chamber and we'll have Councillor Patrick Withers.
Yeah, I'm happy to second that, Chair, Councillor McAleer's proposal.
Okay. And we'll go to also via WebEx, we have Councillor Dr. Josephine Dahan.
Yes, Chair, happy to support Councillor McAleer's proposal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good feedback? No. Did you just lower your hand, Councillor Dahan? Okay, Chief Executive.
It was just then, Chair, the second letters on the, sorry, on page 13, under item 14.4. So this is regarding St Mary's Primary School in 5 Mile Town. So it's just to confirm correspondence back from the Education Authority, which is noting the council's support for the school and setting out the details around the case for change and the associated arrangements. And secondly, the letter from the Department of Education also noting our position and advising that the council may wish to resubmit our views during the 2-month statutory objection period should a proposal be published.
First of all, before we go there, it was proposed and seconded. I didn't ask for agreement on that. I take it we were generally in agreement with Councillor McAleer's proposal and seconded by Councillor Withers and supported by Councillor Dahan. General agreement there on that. Okay. Okay, moving on, we have these. Well, these 2 letters. Councillor Warrington, sorry. Should have been shouting at me. Councillor Warrington,
I just want to abstain from that, please.
you abstaining yourself, okay?
The group's abstaining
It's a
from it.
UUP abstention.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we're on to the next pieces now, and that is from EA and the Department of Education. Okay, and first of all, can we propose that they're noted, first of all, Councillor McAleer in the chamber?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, again, I'll propose to note the letters and just commenting on them. I think it's kind of indicative of a lot of responses that we get back to the council in that the finger of blame is fairly quick to be pointed elsewhere. Note the EA is blaming CCMS, and in the second letter, the Department of Education points the finger of blame at the EA. So happy enough to note them, and just in a further proposal, and I note this is something that's kind of commented on within the letters, but just that we respond requesting that the council is kept updated on proceedings and included as a respondent to the development proposal or final case for change that's going to be taken to the authority's strategic planning and policy committee early in the new year, prior to publication then in February 2023. So just make that as an add-on proposal, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, can we have a seconder for noting the correspondence, the 2 pieces? First of all, Councillor McAduff in the chamber. Can we have a seconder for Councillor McAleer's proposals in the chamber or via WebEx? Councillor McAduff. Hold on, get you on. There you are.
Happy to second the proposal. Also would like CCMS to reply. You know, if 2 out of 3 replies, CCMS didn't dignify us even with a reply. And, you know, they're being held up as the lead agency in taking this proposal forward. So maybe a gentle reminder to CCMS and maybe explain that the other departments and bodies involved have replied, but they haven't. And it's not acceptable practice not to reply.
Okay, you're
And
happy
maybe-
to,
Maybe to ask the chief executive as well, is there anything we can do procedurally in this space, or should we simply be awaiting such a proposal to come forward,
Chief Executive?
But Chair, what we've done in I suppose previous instances is certainly worked with the local community, work with the school around mobilising community support. And it really is around as you know, the petition, the case for change itself, which is largely led by the educational, the school or associated organisations, but certainly would be happy to work with them and perhaps make the request to the school if there's anything that we can do of practical assistance.
Happy enough. Councillor McAleer, just to confirm that you're happy enough with Councillor McAduff's slight amendment to that? Okay. Are we agreed? Not seeing any dissent? Okay, thank you for that. Okay, page 14. Page 15. Chief Executive.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just to highlight to members the response received, excuse me, from the Western Health and Social Care Trust. This is regarding domiciliary care packages and specifically the human rights compliance that the council had raised concerns about. So in response, the trust have referred us to their guidance note, the circular, which is the basis on which they would model such packages and are satisfied that that makes the appropriate provision in terms of human rights and associated compliance requirements.
Okay. Councillor McAleer in the chamber. Proposer to note first. Thank you.
Yeah, Chair, I'll propose to note, I think it's unfortunate Councillor O'Coffey's not here this evening just to address this response, but similar to the previous correspondence from the Department of Education, I don't think they have answered the question that was posed to them in relation to the human rights compliance. So I would be minded that we actually do go back to them again, asking if they could further detail how it is human rights compliant. So that would be my proposal, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll second for noting, please. Councillor Matthew Bell in the chamber. And going via WebEx now, and we have Councillor Keenan, Eamon Keenan.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, happy to second Councillor.
You're happy to second the proposal made by Councillor McAleer, and that's Councillor Keenan. Are we all agreed? Okay, not seeing any dissent. Can you lower your hand, please, Councillor Keenan? Thank you. That's page 15, page 16, and page 17. Okay, we move on now to reports for decision. And it's item 5, Chief Executive Director reports, 5.1, and it's paper A, to consider the report on proposed revision to the Planning Committee protocol. Paper A.
Thank you, Chair. And as the report details, this is really to seek the wider council approval for the Planning Committee's recommendation that the council adopts a validation checklist as part of its overall processes. That would require a change to our Planning Committee protocol, which in turn would require the constitution to be updated. So the appendices that we've attached here would be the proposed revision to the Planning Committee protocol and the proposed validation checklist. And you've seen this is recognised now to be good practice, but also it would be intended would improve the quality of applications coming into the system, and hopefully it would assist as well in the processing time of applications.
Okay, thank you, Chief Executive. It's quite run-of-the-mill stuff, this, I suppose, and it's quite simple. So we'll go to the recommendations in 2 parts. Can we have a proposal seconded for the adoption? Councillor Victor Warrington's proposed, seconded by Councillor Paul Stevenson for the adoption of the recommendations. We'll go on now to Councillor Emmett McAleer.
Thanks, Chair. No, it's one question just in relation to the report, and I don't think it was an amendment recorded, and it's just a query in it. On page 2, it talks about the introduction in November 2016 of all the committee meetings being audio recorded. I'm just wondering, is that video recorded as well, or is it just audio? And secondly, just I would like to lodge my dissent against this one. And I know it's not primarily in relation to the amendments that are made, but I do think reading through the report in general, it's fairly obvious that it's weighted in favour of what's termed the developers. When you look through the points there, that the applicant, agent or supporter has 10 minutes, representations for objectors are 5 minutes. If objectors speak, the applicant has an additional speaking allotment, and as noted on page 6, 1.18, there is no right of third-party appeal. There's a possibility the decision could be subject to judicial review. I do think it's weighted disproportionately, so I'm going to lodge a dissent on that one, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. That's been proposed by Councillor Victor Warrington, second by Councillor Paul Stevenson, to adopt the recommendations. We all agree with the exception of Councillor McAleer, who has indicated his dissent. No other dissent in the chamber or via WebEx. Chief Executive, do you wish to come in?
It was just a comment, Chair, specifically around the audio or video recording. The video recording, we had the provision in the COVID emergency regulations, so we didn't require a further updating. So that's how that's dealt with. However, we were having a discussion just immediately prior to the meeting. I think it is something in the context of the new mandate of the council that we'll want to consider whether, for example, hybrid and the approach for future meetings would be held from May of next year. The third party right of appeal obviously is a wider matter for Northern Ireland. It's not something that the council can influence. We have a stated position that we would be in support of third party rights of appeal in planning matters.
Okay, thank you, Chief Executive. On to item 5.2, and that is to consider the Chief Executive's miscellaneous update report, paper B.
Yeah,
Chief Executive.
Thank you, Chair. Really, these are variously related to meetings, but I'll just briefly summarise. So, believe it or not, next May is the next local government election, and paragraph 211 just sets out the proposed arrangements which would be in line with previous years. So in summary, Chair, it would be intended that we would conclude our committee meetings in March. Our working groups and subcommittees in the main will conclude in February, and that we would have a final council meeting on Tuesday the 4th of April, and with the exception of the planning committee, which we would convene as normal on April, no other meetings then would take place until the new mandate, which would commence with our annual meeting in late May. Second item then, Chair, is seeking members' views regarding the scheduling of special council meetings from January to March of next year. And this is, again, just to seek your opinion. As you're aware from your schedule, evenings are already largely for the month of January fully committed. And we wanted to check in the context of the DFI and the Housing Executive meeting whether there's any flexibility to either convene these earlier or potentially to include the reports as update items within the relevant committee reports. I've indicated in the report that the housing plan had been included on this month's committee agenda, but I realised it had been already circulated to members in advance of the special council meeting. But it's just to note that the Housing Executive is willing to come and address the report to you, but we're under pressure themselves to publish it. I just also wanted to highlight, Chair, that it would be the intention that the further special council meeting to discuss the continuing concerns regarding South West Acute Hospital would convene at 7 p.m. and to advise you that we do have a date now for that meeting. It will be Monday the 9th of January at 7 p.m. and we'll circulate that in due course. And the final item, Chair, is just on in section 3. This is really about aligning our committee, the updates on committee and council actions, and you'll see that we had reported those to you most recently in September. We would intend to present again in January and quarterly thereafter, and that would just tie in with other relevant reports. So just recommending, firstly, Chair, that the Council would confirm the proposed meeting arrangements in advance of the elections in May. indicate whether you've any flexibility on the start time for special council meetings in the period from January to March. Let's say administratively, if you prefer to remain with 7, that's fine. It will just mean they'll be a little bit later on. And approving then the revised reporting timescales for council and committee meeting actions as detailed in paragraph 3.
Okay, thanks to Chief Executive. Just before bring Councillor Warrington on, I suppose with regard to the part 1 of that, those of us who have been in council in previous occasions and know the way the term comes to an end and everything else, it will be in a similar vein. So I'll bring Councillor Warrington in the chamber.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I'll start by proposing the recommendations listed in 9.1, 2 and 3. As for some of the meetings with NIHE and DFI roads, I think certainly DFI, that meeting is an important meeting. It gives us, and I know we've had to cancel it due to other more pressing issues recently, but I think it's important that we move ahead and meet with DFI roads. I know it can be a frustrating meeting sometimes, but like roads issue is our biggest, is what we get our most complaints about, and we need to be able to obviously share them with the main people in DFI. So I think it's certainly important to know during the day meetings doesn't suit a lot of people. Certainly I know it suits a lot of our group, but certainly I think them 2 meetings are important. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Warrington. Back on the chamber again, Councillor Alex Baird.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, sort of, Chief Executive, talking about the election, which I presume have in my diary for Thursday, the 4th of May. At the NILGA meeting, it was discussed, but there's no clarity. I mean, I suppose what I'm trying to get around to is the likelihood of that date being brought forward because of the coronation of King Charles on the 8th of May, and the difficulty with the electoral office not counting overnight. Have you anything further to add? Sorry, putting you on the spot.
No, not at all, Chair. I suppose just our understanding at the moment, and just to clarify, the coronation will be on the 6th of May, Saturday the 6th, which would be the second day of the count. The election will be on the 4th. Our understanding is the electoral office is working with Westminster regarding the date. There will be a requirement to change the legislation. I think the expectation is the date will be changed, but we have been advised to plan for the 4th of May and that we are unlikely to know anything different until the end of January. I think if there is a change, it is likely to be, it won't be significant in terms of the duration. It's whether it's brought slightly earlier into April or put back a week or 2 into May. But at the official line at the moment is we plan for the 4th of May.
Thank you for that. Yep.
Okay, you happy to second Councillor Warrington?
Certainly.
Certainly. Okay, that's seconded for there. And we'll go to the chamber again with Councillor Emmett McAleer.
Thanks, Chair. Just in relation to, I suppose, the second of the recommendations, I don't know if there's any suggestions put forward at the minute in terms of that flexibility. As someone who works a full-time job, I would need the meeting to be, if it's held in Omagh, after 5 o'clock, if it's held in Enniskillen after 6 o'clock, just to be there in time for that. But certainly if it was held in either of those locations at those times, I should be able to attend. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for those comments. Now we'll go to WebEx, and we have, first of all, Councillor John Coyle.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, agree with the proposal from Councillor Warrington, but can I ask the Chief Executive, DEA meetings have not happened in 2022, and with DFI roads, I think it's vitally important that we do have these. Yeah, great to have the special council meeting, but you know, there's local issues in each ward of the council, and we need to, you know, voice our concerns for our constituents and get issues resolved. So I'd like to propose that we have them set up. May not be before, but at least we have an avenue of lobbying and getting our points across to the staff and DFA.
Chair, maybe just to respond specifically on that point, as Councillor Coyle, indeed members will be aware, the sequence of this should be that we would have the DEA meetings normally about a week or 10 days before the special council meeting. We did have the special council meeting convened or arranged for the 16th, 18th of November. My understanding is DFI indicated due to resource pressures, they were unable to also offer DEA meetings. But we would be certainly working on the basis that we would, again, when we have a date identified with them for the special council meeting, that the DEA components would happen first. But we certainly didn't have any offers of dates as far as I recall.
Okay. Now on to WebEx again. We have Councillor Seamus Green.
Thank you, Chair. No, I would agree with previous speakers there in just how important these meetings are with road service. Case in point, at the minute, I don't know what way it is in the rest of the district, but in my own area, which I'm sure you all know is quite a hilly area, there hasn't been any grit piles put out. And we're in the midst of winter now, and it really is causing havoc. As people know, we don't get our rural roads salted or gritted, and it's left to local people to do it. But road services just didn't bother putting out grit piles, and so I am proposing we write to them quite strongly and ask why this wasn't done this year. And the meetings are vitally important because it's something I'd ask every year when they're starting to do these. So thank you, Chair.
Councillor Green, I'm just going to bring in Chief Executive and to clarify a few issues here.
Well, no, it's just, and I appreciate Councillor Green was unavailable last night, Chair, but just to advise, we've had a proposal exactly to that effect regarding the absence of grit piles, the working with local communities and the last minute nature, indeed zero provision in many areas. So we'll be getting that action. The action sheet, will issue tomorrow from Regeneration and Community, and the detail of that will be included.
All right, Councillor Green.
Yeah, thank you. No, that's great.
Okay, if you can lower your hand there, please. Thank you. Next up, we have Councillor Thomas O'Reilly via WebEx.
Thank you, Chair. Just when we're on the subject of the DEA meetings, while it would be good to actually have them convened and allow us the ability to put across the various issues concerning residents in our respective areas, we would like to be able to facilitate back to those concerned residents answers to their queries in somewhat of a timely manner. And I do not believe that 3 months later, after a DEA meeting, getting an answer is anyway timely, Chair. So I'm proposing that we make that point. We also ask for an update on the level of personnel within the Fermanagh area, and particularly to cover the various things like gritting and putting out grit piles and so forth, because I believe that the staff and complement must be very low when it takes 3 months to reply and we're not seeing things done. So I'm concerned here, Chair, that we are maybe asking a couple of people to try to do something that is just not physically possible. So I'd be proposing that we try to elicit from them some understanding of the staffing level and why it takes 3 months to give us replies. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And I know we had our meeting here with the Minister and the Western manager, and he was fit to confirm on that day that Arvalee Depot in Omagh had dropped to a number 8, 8 people employed at DFI headquarters or DFI Arvalee Depot. So from a what would have been about 10 years ago, about 24 people. So that's how far down that is. So certainly you made that a proposal that we write to DFI Roads on that issue.
Indeed, Chair, yes.
Okay.
Chief Executive? No, it's just we'll again certainly follow up on that, but just to advise, Peter's just mentioned we've received an update earlier from DFI on some of it's like a revised organisational structure. So we will also issue that to members in the meantime, Chair, but we'll obviously follow up with the detail and specifically around the delays, as I'm sure there's still some gaps in the information that had previously been sought.
Okay, thank you, Chief Executive. Back in the chamber now, we have Councillor Rosemary Barton. I'll get you lit up here now.
You just mentioned that Arverley Depot had dropped from 24 personnel to 8. Was there a reason given for that?
Just my interpretation of what we were told on the day, and it was a meeting on here, and we've mentioned it many times since, that the people were retiring and were not replaced due to basically cutbacks.
Okay.
So. You have anything else to say? You okay? Wrapping up. Right. Councillor Baird.
Thanks, Chair. I would have thought it was in DFI's interest to have the DEA meetings, because if they're not held, what you're going to get is all, and I use the word lightly, parish pump issues coming forward. There's a different level of attendance at the meeting. The main meeting was probably more more of a structured meeting and more of a strategic meeting. That's the word I was after. Whereby the other meetings, as I say, if they're not held, well, the questions that are going to be asked will not be able to respond by the people that are there. It's just a different level of attendance. So I think we should insist on the DEA meeting prior to that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Baird. 2 more speakers via WebEx, and that's Councillor Sean Clark is the first up. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. Funny enough, I was going to second originally. Seamus brought this, but that's now all gone. Now, the one thing is, I was trying to ring the road drivers today. I don't think there's anybody manning the phones in the offices. That's the day anyway. It was actually, impossible. But so clearly that's a an issue for the employment. There's obviously a lot of people not, there was nobody answering the phones several times. I rung 3 times a day and there was nobody answering phones. That seemed to be the problem.
Yeah. I'll take on board what you're saying, Councillor Clark there. We can include that in the correspondence, the letters going. All right?
Right, yeah, thank you.
All right, thanks, Councillor Clark. And last speaker on this issue is Councillor Bernice Swift via WebEx.
Gurmagat Cahirlock, and as this debate was talked about again last night, I just want to say thanks very much to the council for putting up the very helpful web link underneath their own web page, where they're highlighting to all of our citizens and ratepayers, first of all, to remind everybody that the gritting is provided by DFI Roads, and that would include the provision of grit boxes and the gritting of the roads and pavements. And the very useful link is there to report a road or pavement in need of gritting. So I'm just letting members know that helpfully as well, and it's been shared widely already, so that has been very useful, and I support the same. I think it's a very accessible way to indeed get through to any councillors who are having difficulty. You're bypassing having to wait on phones and responses. You're putting your complaint directly into the list for reporting issues on ice or snow. Okay?
Thank you, Councillor Swift. Councillor Warrington, you've been on. Go ahead.
Wait, haven't been on this, have I?
You have.
Sorry, just quickly, it's certainly better to report it via email or by doing it online, because at least then it's in the system, and whereas you phone it in, you can be sort of forgotten about very quickly.
Old days. Thank you for that. Okay, just to bring this to conclusion now, just with regard to the recommendations, we had it proposed by Councillor Warrington and seconded by Councillor Baird, and general agreement there with Councillor Coyle, Green, O'Reilly, Clark and Swift, all commenting. A further proposal there from Councillor O'Reilly that we write to DFI Roads with regard to these issues, and I think that was seconded by Councillor Sean Clark. And general agreement on that as well. Okay, no dissent. Thank you. Okay, we're on to item 6 now, and it's corporate services and governance directorate reports. And 6.1 is to consider the report on consultations, paper C, and online we should have Officer Louise Horner take us through this one. Louise?
Yes, Chair, thank you. Yeah, I can't seem to start my video. Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear, yes.
Okay, apologies. I thought my video was working. Sorry, I'll just carry on. Okay. So thank you, Chair. So at 2.1, the key issue for decision is approval of the draft response to the consultation, the DOJ's consultation on modern slavery and human trafficking strategy 2022. So the draft council response was attached at Appendix 1, is generally supportive of the aims outlined in the consultation. So these are to do with to pursue, protect and prevent. And our comments focus mainly on, firstly, that the fact of the majority of local cases in Northern Ireland, of which there are 363 last year, relate to labour exploitation, the duty to notify provision, the national referral mechanism, and the need for more awareness raising sessions led by the DOJ, and also training to be provided to first responding organisations. And I think the key issue that we're raising here is that the so-called first responder organisations need to be reevaluated and widened to include councils, as well as education and medical sectors. So, so at 9.1, the recommendation is that members approve the draft response at Appendix 1. Secondly, key issues for information. So there are a number of consultations which are broken down here. So firstly, at 9.2, that the council notes the additional information on, firstly, forthcoming consultations to which responses will be presented to a future committee meeting. And that will include an energy one-stop shop. And secondly, a consultation on support for care leavers. That there are a number of forthcoming consultations for information only. There's one on the future of marine and fisheries support, parking and waiting restrictions, proposed amendments to the human trafficking and exploitation regulations. And then the third group is forthcoming consultations, which we refer to other council colleagues for technical consideration. And there'll be one on changes to improve the quality of planning applications. And then the fourth group is the consultations which have been submitted since the last Policy and Resources Committee, which is a consultation on increasing the minimum age of criminal responsibility, and the targeted consultation on amendments to the Code of Practice for the appointment of independent members to the PCSP. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Louise.
Thank you. So members are asked to approve the response and to note the other consultation responses. Thank you.
Okay, thanks again, Louise, for that. Okay, members, you have heard Louise here. There's one for, there's a recommendation to approve, and the other are for noting. So go first of all to the chamber here, and we have Councillor John McClarty.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to propose that we go ahead. As usual, I think the Department of Justice are a wee bit light in their consultation on the human trafficking and slavery. I think public awareness and education is something that needs to be involved as well. Many of these people have language or educational need barriers that includes why they're exploited, and the public generally aren't aware of the type of roles that these people carry out. Many see them as just being involved in the sex industry, but it's much wider than that. And all of these people are being exploited for gain, and this large financial gain. It's organised crime gangs that are involved in it, and it's serious amounts of money involved, and there's human beings at the bottom of the pile. So whilst I welcome the council's response, I again say that the Department of Justice could do more.
Okay, so you're happy to propose for approval and also for the noting, the other pieces. Okay, thank you. I'm going to WebEx now, and it's Councillor Dr. Josephine Dahan.
Thank you, Chair, and I want to thank Louise and her team for all the work that they've put into these consultation responses. I'm happy to second the recommendation, Chair. I just really wanted to make a comment on modern slavery and human trafficking. This is an horrendous crime. And I think that members would be shocked if they realise the extent to which this is happening, because there's huge amounts of money to be made by unscrupulous people who are prepared to inflict terror and suffering on other human beings for the sake of profit. I am aware that Ulster University and perhaps other universities are engaged in research into using artificial intelligence to identify patterns of behaviour to help identify victims of human trafficking. And I would like to see added to the response that the department should not only redouble their efforts to educate the public about this menace, but also to seek to invest money in research opportunities that would assist in the detection of this crime. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dahan. Okay, so those recommendations are being proposed and seconded. Councillor McClary proposed, seconded by Councillor Dr. Dahan, with her other comments. You're happy enough to include those? Are we all agreed? Yep. Okay, thank you for that. Happy enough, Louise?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah.
No problem at all. Okay, we're on now to item 6.2, and it's to consider a report on procurement and tenders update, paper D. And online we have Catherine Leonard. Hello, Catherine.
Good evening, Chair. Good evening, members. So there are quite a number of individual procurements listed within the paper. Section 2 of the report details those that seek council approval. So members seeking approval for the award of Trillick St Macartn's GSE pitch improvement works, the design, delivery and development of sectoral employment academies, and the supply and delivery of 2 recycling collection vehicles. Members, 2 of those tenders came in just over the pre-tender estimate, and the other tender in relation to the design, development and delivery of employment activities. And 1 tender was received for some of the lots, i.e. then they're brought for approval to yourselves in line with the procurement policy. Members, in addition to that, approval is sought for the extension of contracts as outlined in section 2 of the report in relation to a contractor framework for the outdoor play and recreation works, the design and delivery of leadership development programme for the council, the supply and servicing of washroom, sanitary and fragrance equipment, the collection of municipal waste from Gortrush Transfer Station, and the collection of commingled blue waste from Dramee Integrated Waste Facility. Also included in the report is the approval to proceed to issue tenders for the provision of electricity supply from the 1st of April 2023 and for the collection and recycling of paint. Also included in the report is members' approval or request for approval for the procurement of award of ground investigation services through the construction and procurement delivery framework in relation to the Fermanagh Lakeland project. And members, finally, for approval is retrospective approval for the payment of £8,174.75p plus VAT to ADP Architects and £163,495 plus VAT to Woodvale Construction Limited following certification and completion of contract works, those works that are underway in relation to the Town Hall windows in Enniskillen and following on from works that were undertaken in relation to the original contracts there at the Town Hall. Part of the work highlighted the need for those windows. At item 3 and section 3 of the report, and for noting members, are tenders awarded within the last period from the last committee report, and price increase in relation to farm plastics.
Okay, Catherine, thank you very much. Okay, members, you've heard Catherine give a very detailed report there, and you have several parts of it for decision and approval, and other parts for basically for noting. And we have a proposer and seconder for to cover all. Councillor Warrington and Councillor Crawford. Proposed by Councillor Victor Warrington, seconded by Councillor Roy Crawford. Are we all agreed? Okay.
Thank you,
Thanks very
Chair.
much, Catherine. Okay, now on to reports for information. And it's on to item 7, Corporate Services and Governance Directorate Report. And we have Thelma Brown online via WebEx. Thelma.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening. Just a report for information this evening for you on staff matters. So a couple of items just more as a reminder for you, Chair. On this Friday, the 16th, we are holding, or the Chair is holding the annual Chair's Christmas reception for staff, and that will include the employee recognition event as well, with the awards taking place there at 3 p.m. in the training room at the Grange. Just also a reminder on the closure dates for Christmas. So basically our buildings will close from Monday the 26th of December to Monday the 2nd of January inclusive. So that's our administrative and civic buildings. There's an update there in relation to the conclusion of all of the pay negotiations then from a national level for the 2022-23 year, with the final circular attached in relation to Chief Executive salary scales. And then the next item, Chair, relates to pay for 2023. So local government negotiations on the pay for the National Pay Award for 23-24 are due to commence in January time. We are expecting to have a claim from the trade union side for their pay claim in relation to the national award. And then there's also included in the papers an invitation for the chair of the council and officers and one other member to attend the virtual pay briefing event on the 7th of February at 2 p.m. and NILGA have included that correspondence. So I said there will be at least one officer, possibly 2, attending that. And if the chair is available to attend, if that can be agreed tonight, and if there's any other elected member, such as yourself as the chair of the Policy and Resources Committee or the vice chair, who wish to attend, we could have that included tonight as a recommendation. And finally, the last item for noting there is an additional bank holiday for the coronation of His Majesty King Charles III in May, and that will include an additional bank holiday, the 8th of May, for all staff, and that will be recognised in the council. So, Chair, that's the items for noting. Just the one point, if we have anyone who wishes to be nominated to attend the pay briefing on the 7th of February.
Okay, thank you very much, Thelma. Very detailed, as per usual. First of all, I know that, can we just confirm that the chair will be fit to attend? I know I done it last year. You'll be able to attend, Chairman, and maybe a second person. I just want to confirm with Councillor Alan Rooney, MBE, the Vice Chair of the Council, if he's fit to attend or take part.
I'm happy to attend, Chair. I'm happy to attend if nominated.
Okay, it'll be online, Councillor Rooney, so that's Councillor McAduff and yourself as Chair and Vice Chair of the Council, plus Thelma, and if there's anyone else. That'll be it, I think, from my memory last year. All right, Thelma, you've got that detail?
That's great. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, into the chamber now with Councillor Matthew Bell.
Thank you, Chair, and I'm happy enough to propose the recommendations, but I would also like to make a comment and another proposal around 2.5 in relation to the coronation of His Majesty King Charles III. I'm really happy that the councils get planning ahead and getting ready for that for the coronation so much ahead of time. But I would like to propose that as part of the plans, we write to His Majesty King Charles III, perhaps in April, probably in April, maybe mid or late April, and congratulate him on his coronation and offer the council's full support as our head of state. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so you've heard the recommendations proposed by Councillor Matthew Bell with an added one with regard to writing a letter to His Majesty King Charles III. And going to the chamber again, we have Councillor Roy Crawford.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to second Councillor Bell's proposal there regards to Her Majesty the King.
So you're happy to second all the
Yes.
recommendations?
Yes.
With the added?
Yeah, all together.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm seeing other councillors coming in here. We'll go to the chamber again and we have Emmett McAleer. Councillor Emmett McAleer.
Thank you, Chair. Note just the report in front of us. I do have to dissent on one item that's contained within the report, and that's the additional uplift for the chief executives across the board, and that's nothing personal to the chief executive of this council. I do know it's right across the board. Just being mindful of the times that we're in, I think people who are already on salaries at that extent don't really need that increase, and I don't think it's fitting, so I can't really support that, Chair. The second thing in relation to the proposal from Councillor Bell, I don't really think it's fitting for a council to be congratulating someone which is in essence an accident of birth. So I will be dissenting from that also, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Back on the chamber again, we have Councillor Tommy Maguire.
Margaret Carley, just if it could be recorded, the dissent of the Sinn Féin group to Councillor Bell's proposal, a letter of congratulations, where, as we are on record several times of wishing no ill will on these people, we certainly don't wish to be congratulate them to such a position, and we do not recognise that authority. Margaret.
Okay, thank you. So that's on behalf of the Sinn Féin group and Councillor McAleer is an independent. Two others want to speak to independents. We have Councillor Bernice Swift via WebEx.
Yeah, Gurmagat, Cahirlock, and thank you, Thelma, for the report, of which I acknowledge and accept. And I just want to say my apologies. I will not be able to attend the fantastic celebration for all the workers on Friday. But in my absence, I raise my glass and applaud each and every individual worker in the council for everything that they do for all of us throughout the year in such hard and challenging times. I embrace it all and applaud you all and wish you all a very happy party. Enjoy your celebrations. So thank you for that, Thelma. And Cahirlock, I actually too wish to be recorded as dissenting from that proposal by Councillor Bell. But I would be going further actually, in regard to the comments that were made by the four speakers. It really should. I would ask this to go to a vote because I don't feel it's appropriate whatsoever. So I would be voting against it even more, along with just dissenting. Gurmagat. I propose that. Thank you.
Okay, I was going to put it to a vote anyway because I was clearly seeing dissent and recorded vote will be granted as
thank you,
Councillor Bell. Councillor Keenan, quickly.
Yeah.
Sorry, can't.
I'd like to record me dissent. Or yeah, you're going to put it to the vote anyway. That's fine. Yeah.
Let's go to the vote. Recorded vote. Now. We're not picking you up there, Councillor.
Yeah, total dissent against the Prime Estate. The cosmetic costs of resources in.
Sorry, we're not picking you up. We're going to the vote anyway, but we'll just call on Councillor Mary Gardy on via WebEx before we do that.
Just briefly, Chair, just want to listen to some of the debate, and first and foremost, there was reference made to the rise and sometimes of the chief executive across the board wages. Just in response to that, as being a previous chair of the council and like yourself, a previous chairman, I have witnessed the level of work that is undertaken by a chief executive of our council. Anyway, I can't speak for any other council. And at that time, it was the previous chief executive, Brendan Haggerty. I also am fully aware of the work of our chief executive. And in my ignorance, when I started this position as a councillor in 2014, I would have thought, you know, that would be a great wee job for somebody that I know. And then when you realise that they're not even able to spend this money because they have no time off, my suggestion would be that the chief executive could send some my way, because I could certainly get rid of it, but they have no time with their work commitment. It's really a 24/7 job, and where it is a decent salary, it's very much well earned by the previous chief executive, in my opinion, and indeed this one. So I wanted to put that on record, because the general public are unaware really of what goes on within council, and certainly within the role of the chief executive. Secondly, regarding the bit of controversy that we're going to enter into now, regarding the letter, well, I have sent and agreed to many letters from this council that I really haven't wholeheartedly really endorsed or got behind, but in the sentiment of a peace, I would have just went along with it. However, I would have reservations in the part of the proposal that the councillor brought regarding the letter to the King Charles, and that holding off to April, because like me, none of us know where we'll be in April. And like, I mean, if it was a sentiment of congratulations and well wishing, I think it should be something that is done timely at the time, because nobody knows where King Charles will be in April, or where I will be in April, or yourself. So therefore, I find that strange. So I think if he's making the proposal, it should be one that he's making from now, so people can take the vote on it, because I think voting for a letter to go out in April should be proposed in April. But that's just my views on it, Chair, and I just want to put that on record. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gardy. And I think we're generally agreed on everything else is in there. Thelma has talked about. It's just with this proposal. Councillor Bell, I'm just bringing you in very quickly again.
Just to respond to the last comment, I thought it was timely to bring it in now, as we're talking about the other plans surrounding the coronation. So I thought I may as well get everything planned and organised at once. And if something unfortunate does happen to King Charles, I'm sure the councillor can bring a rescinded motion to stop the letter being sent, or if something horrible does happen King Charles in another way, then presumably his coronation will be cancelled anyway. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, that's everyone. If you could lower your hand there, please, Councillor Eamon Keenan. We're going to a vote, and the vote is up there now. So please vote. Just waiting for the chamber here now. Okay, there you go. Okay, just bring the chief executive in shortly. Okay. Okay, chief executive.
Thank you, Chair. There were 16 votes for and 17 votes against. So the proposal is defeated.
Okay, thank you. And just with regard to all our pieces that Thelma dealt with, that's all agreed. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. One. Sorry. Okay, as indicated at the commencement of the meeting, we're now going to part two business in committee. Can we have a proposer and seconder, please? Councillor Robert Irvine, seconded by Councillor Paul Stevenson. We're now going into committee. Just give us a thumbs up when you're ready, Selena. There we go. Okay, we're now back, and now I'll ask the Chief Executive to give a quick resume of what took place whilst in committee.
Thank you, Chair. While in committee, the Council considered matters arising from the confidential minutes of the Policy and Resources Committee meeting held on the 9th of November, and there were no matters arising from those minutes, and also considered report on confidential staff matters, agreed with the various recommendations in the report, Chair, and also resolved a course of action in relation to ongoing industrial relations matters.
Okay, can we have a proposer and seconder? Mr. Stevenson? Mr. Roy Crawford? All agreed? Okay. Okay, it's just going on after 9:01, and now we're going to the notice of motion, which is item 9, and it's 9.1, it's the A5 public inquiry. And I'm not going to read it all out here, but it's been proposed by the Sinn Féin grouping, and it's Councillor Glenn Campbell and seconded by Councillor Stephen McCann, and supported by the other members of the Sinn Féin party grouping. Councillor Campbell, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. As you say, the motion has been distributed prior to tonight's meeting and prior to the previous meetings as well. So we all have it in front of us. And Fermanagh and Omagh District Council, Chairman, as you know, have been unequivocal in our support for the A5 Western Transport Corridor since its inception, or since it's 15 years really, since the first plans were properly put in place. And many times in this chamber, the absolute necessity for the delivery of the road has been highlighted, and often, too often, sadly, it's been the issue of road safety that has been to the fore, really, as the death toll, sadly, on this road continues to rise. And I want to take a moment at the outset, Chairman, to be mindful of those many families who have suffered a loss on the A5 route, and those their loss is immeasurable, and it can't be recovered in any way. And particularly at this time of year, we're debating the motion in December, and many families facing the first Christmas without a loved one lost on the road, and many others facing another Christmas. So mindful of their loss, and really wanted to bring this motion so that our council could do everything we can to bring about a road that is fit for purpose, and that addresses not only the issue of road safety, but of the issue of economic redress for the west of the Ban, really, that has been neglected for too long. The A5 scheme is a vital piece of infrastructure. It's been recognised as an executive flagship project in the Fresh Start Agreement in 2015, and most recently in the New Decade New Approach. The upgrade will, as you know, allow for 85 kilometres of road dual carriageway from Auchnathloy up to New Buildings, and this would improve connectivity to the region while ensuring that local people have better access to opportunities, like education, training and employment, more comfortable journeys to hospitals, etc. It will enhance social inclusion by improving access to services and better connecting communities. And as a member of the Planning Committee, Chairman, I am very much mindful of the environmental impact of any development, as we all are. However, I am very clear on the absolute necessity for full delivery of the A5 Western Transport Scheme. So I stand firmly with the majority of people who believe that the scheme should be allowed to proceed without further delay. It's sadly, Chairman, a matter of life and death. Delivery of the new A5 dual carriageway will save lives, and that is a fact. And I will say that the mindset that drives a small minority to continually frustrate progress is genuinely hard for people to understand. It's clear that the A5 upgrade is fundamental for improving road safety, as well as transforming the economic fortunes of the entire Northwest region, alongside tackling the current regional imbalance. So the majority of people, Chairman, want to see delivery of the A5 without further delay. However, this has been, unfortunately, disproportionately represented at the recent PAC public inquiry. The number of objections submitted to the inquiry vastly outnumbered those in support of the A5 upgrade. So that's disproportionate, and it's deeply frustrating that a small number of objectors, known as the Alternative A5 Alliance, are still determined to object to the scheme. So it's vitally important that members of the public respond to the consultation and address the inquiry when eventually is reconvened to reflect the views of the majority of people in this district. We should encourage members of the public, local businesses, all sorts of organisations to write or to make an oral submission to the public inquiry. We should use every means available to us to encourage responses, including the use of social and other media and information sessions in council-run buildings. And that's really the gist of the proposal tonight. And I'm therefore urging all the councillors in the chamber to fully support the motion and continue to represent our citizens who deserve delivery of this scheme and delivery of the safety and the economic benefits that it will bring. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Just within the time, thank you for that. Now we go to the seconder of the motion, and that is Councillor Stephen McCann. You have 3 minutes, Councillor McCann.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. And this motion serves to remind us that the majority of the people of this area do indeed support the upgrade of the A5. They recognise the huge importance of this upgrade, as does this council. However, the progress of this project continues to be frustrated and delayed by a small and unrepresentative minority calling themselves the Alternative A5 Alliance. At a recent informal meeting this council had with the then Minister for Infrastructure, John O'Dowd, we heard how each challenge to this project delayed it by approximately 18 months, and all the while people are losing their lives or suffering serious injuries on this treacherous road. At the recent preliminary event held in the Stool Arts Centre, attendees heard at first hand the devastation that comes to a family following a death resulting from a collision on the A5. And at the very same meeting, shamefully, another challenge to the project has pushed the start date of the public inquiry back from the planned January 2023 commencement date. Following this meeting, my party colleague Declan McAleer, MLA, submitted a Freedom of Information request to the PSNI for information on the number of people killed in road traffic collisions on the A5 and on the A4 Ballygolly to Dungannon Road. Sadly, since 1998, 70 people have lost their lives on the A5 and 58 people have died on the A4. The A4 dual carriageway opened on the 17th of November 2010, and during the past 12 years, 2 people have sadly lost their lives on this road. However, during the same period, 34 people have been killed on the A5, and each of these people had loving families who still mourn their loss. All deaths are devastating for families and loved ones, and unquestionably, there are dozens of people who are thankfully still alive today due to the construction of the A4 dual carriageway. The difference in death rates between the A4 dual carriageway and the A5 road is compelling evidence that dual carriageways are safer and presses home the urgent need to proceed with the A5 dual carriageway. I would therefore appeal to all those who want to see the A5 delivered to make a contribution to the inquiry and help deliver this vital piece of infrastructure. If you are unable to attend in person, you should make a written submission to info@pacni.gov.uk. That's info@pacni.gov.uk. To that end, this motion calls on this council to do all it can to assist our residents to have their say on the progression of the A5. Through social media, messaging and other initiatives, we will proactively encourage the citizens of this district to register the support for the upgrade. The A5 upgrade must proceed without any further delay. Too many lives have been lost. Too many families have been devastated. I would encourage all our residents to play your part in the campaign to secure the A5 upgrade by making your voice in support of the A5 heard to the public inquiry. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Just within the time there, Councillor. Thank you. Now we will go to the chamber, and we have Councillor Rosemary Barton.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for this opportunity to speak on the A5 Western Transport Corridor. This is an important piece of infrastructure, certainly, for the western area of Northern Ireland. And It's something that a lot of us in the West feel is very, very important to us, especially in our travelling. However, I'm aware that there's been a number of issues in relation to the A5 regarding the safety of the A5. And particularly at this time, I'd like to express my condolences to the many families that have lost members while driving along the A5. And I think we're thinking of them at this particular time, particularly around Christmas time. I'd like to look at, while we're looking at the A5, I'd like to look at some perhaps schemes that perhaps could be advanced maybe sooner rather than later along the A5. And for example, there needs to be a bypass around Strabane, and that needs to be coupled with a bypass around Sion Mills to try and speed the traffic. I know there are other areas of it, but I think there's particularly poignant areas that we could work with at the moment, and that would be one of the areas. Second area would be the bypass around Omagh. Yes, we have a through pass, but we do need a bypass. There's a lot of congestion in the through pass at the various times of the day. And thirdly, we need to look at this 2+1 that is on the A5 south towards Ballygawley. This is quite a dangerous part of the road, and we need to look at a number of interim safety measures there before we proceed totally with the A5. And I think it's also imperative, we're talking about the SWA and the issues with it at the moment. This is one of the main routes to the SWA. We speak about the golden hour within the SWA. We need good transport to the SWA. So that's particularly where I'm coming for in relation to the bypass around Omagh and this 2+1. One disappointing thing about the A5, the progression of the A5, has been the Dublin government, when it was initially proposed, they committed to putting finance into the A5, a considerable amount of finance into the A5. That of recent has been withdrawn, or over the past number of years has been withdrawn, and that there is very, very disappointing. So while our party is in support of what has got this motion here tonight, I do believe that there are parts of it particularly that could be commenced very quickly.
Thank you. Just slightly over there, Councillor. Over your 3 minutes, slightly. And just before I move on, you just triggered my memory when I was a child growing up in Omagh, or when I was a child in Omagh, we talked about a circular road of Omagh. I went back at that time, so that's a fair number of years ago, and before any digging or any holes were dug in the railway line. But that was by the by. Right, okay, on to the next speakers, and back in the chamber again, we have Councillor Emmett McAleer.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, again, I think it's fairly widely known that the council supports the progress on the A5, and I don't find anything overly objectionable within the motion presented before us, but I do have to take issue with some of the claims that have been made during the speaking by the proposer and the seconder. I think this idea that all fault lies with opposition group or groups or individuals is completely blown out of proportion. And to evidence that fact, we have the very recent report that we got back from the PAC in relation to the preliminary hearing, which has been delayed not by anything that any group or individual resident in this district has done, but it's due completely to failings from the Department for Infrastructure. And I think when we look at the spend that DFI has incurred on this stretch of road over the years, topping now, I'm sure, in the region of £100 million, questions and serious questions have to be asked in relation to that. This road should be up and should be available at this stage. It's not because of failings in the processes that the DFI should know inside out, but unfortunately they fail to practice what they preach. And I think that's hugely important. Whilst we talk about a silent minority or a silent majority within this district area, that to a large extent is speculation too, because the evidence, I suppose, stands to the contrary. Now, I'm sure there are many people that do support that, and I would be surprised if the vast majority of the district don't support the progress on the A5. But I do think we can't just progress this at no cost or with no thought put into it. There is legislation and there are safety procedures, there are health procedures, there are environmental procedures to be followed. We need to respect those. And I think this idea of getting everything done and throwing all of that out the window is very concerning. But in relation to what's stated before us and brought before us in the motion, I don't have any difficulty supporting that, and I'm sure the residents of Mid Tyrone would support it as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. McAleer. And now to Councillor Barry McElduff.
Hey, thank you, Chair. Just want to congratulate Councillor Campbell and Councillor McCann for proposing and seconding this motion. It's very specific, very precise, in its direction, and it starts off with noting our council's consistent and ongoing support. That's very, very important. And just moving on, people might think that to make a submission to the consultation is quite a technical exercise. It doesn't have to be. When John O'Dowd came here as the then Infrastructure Minister, the first thing he said was, make your voices heard in the latest phase of consultation. And I would be suggesting to people that whether they want to make 1 point or 2 points or 3 points or 4 points or more, like the imperative around road safety, the imperative around connectivity, north, south and east, west. You yourself, Chairman, have always emphasised the east, west, the Belfast connectivity, reducing travel times and creating opportunity for economic development and social development in the greater Northwest, not least this area here, this council area. So it needn't be a very technical, technical submission, but from people or from individuals, but they do need to state their support along those or other grounds. And finally, just to encourage the council to be creative about the methods of public engagement, the types of information sessions, and the messaging, to elicit a good outcome. People say, will it ever happen? And I think this motion says, make your voices heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McAuliffe. And we now go to Councillor John McCloughery in Chamber.
Thank you, Chair. As a police officer stationed in Omagh, I covered the A5 road for many years and well aware of the dangers on it. The level of accidents and the seriousness of the accident, whenever that call came in that there was an accident on the A5, it was always with dread that you headed out, because you knew that the consequences were generally serious and possibly life-changing for those involved. So I welcome the motion. I would have liked to have seen maybe if all the councillors from the three DAAs particularly affected signing that they had, it would have maybe give a welcome that it has been brought and it is needed. I'd like to have seen it maybe for the future, something like this, if it maybe had a little bit more of a cross section, because there is no discrimination, there is no difference out there. The people involved in the accident, they aren't picked out because they drive a red car or a black car, or they drive a white car or a yellow car. There's no discrimination on the road when the accidents occur. So it would have been nice if we'd had a broader support, but we will be supporting the motion.
Thank you for that. Last speaker in the chamber is Councillor Patrick Withers.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to echo the comments of Councillor Campbell and Councillor McCann on the importance of people responding to the public inquiry over the coming months. I also have to say I'm disappointed by Councillor McAleer's comments. The reality is the responsibility for the delay lies with objectors. The repeated legal challenges that have caused the delays and it's costing lives. That's the reality. And while I do support interim safety measures, which have happened at Carvahi, they're merely only papering over the cracks. We need to see the full delivery of the A5. Just in recent weeks, I had made representation on safety enhancements at Crawfords Bridge Junction. However, its reality is the full upgrade to dual carriageway status is needed for safety reasons, to save lives, and for connectivity, as Councillor McAuliffe has referred to there, for the development of the economy in the Northwest. Go Margaret.
Thank you, Councillor Withers. And now we're going to concentrate on WebEx. And we have 6 speakers on WebEx. And bear in mind, it is now 9:20. First up is Councillor Dr. Josephine Dehan. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. And I want to commend Councillor Campbell and Councillor McCann for bringing forward this motion. I support this motion wholeheartedly, Chair. Members have highlighted the necessity for the A5 dualling, long awaited, and while we're waiting for it, precious lives lost. And my heart goes out to the families of those who lost their lives tragically. Chair, it is not possible to put a cost on a human life. In my opinion, many of these are avoidable deaths. And yes, we do have to have consideration for landowners and for planning legislation. But I think that the safety aspects of the A5 need to be urgently addressed. I certainly wouldn't have any objection to interim safety measures, but the fact of the matter is that the 2+1 schemes do not bring the safety that is required. We urgently require the A5 dualling. I think the majority of people who support the A5 dualling do need to speak up and make their views known, because otherwise, there will be no indication of the strength of support for this long-awaited project. So I'm happy that this motion has come forward tonight, and I'm pleased to support it, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dr. Dehan. Next up, we have Councillor Stephen Donnelly via WebEx. You have 3 minutes, Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you very much, Chair, and can I welcome the bringing forward of this motion. And I do want to start by saying that I think that we all do think at this time of all those families who have empty seats around their dinner tables due to the loss of life that has occurred on the A5 over the course of many years. The delivery of this critical piece of infrastructure has been categorised by difficulty and delay, all the while our constituents in this district have been growing further and further impatient at the lack of patience addressing the absolute deficit that exists with respect to our connectivity and our infrastructure. Now, as has been mentioned, through engagement with the Department for Infrastructure, we have been able to have limited success in terms of lobbying for pragmatic additional measures along particularly dangerous stretches such as Garvahi, but as was alluded to by Councillor Withers, ultimately, if we are going to be able to maximise and secure the safety along this road that we need to make sure that we get the full scale, that we secure the upgrade that is required in this particular respect. And on the DFI front, I think that it is imperative that the department does actually make sure that it gets its ducks in a row in terms of addressing those particular environmental concerns and considerations, because we all want to be able to make sure that we can deliver this vital piece of infrastructure whilst of course respecting the environment, and ultimately there is responsibility there on the department to make sure that that is taken into consideration. But on the specifics of the motion, I think that it is important that whatever role the council can play in amplifying the voice of people in our district to be able to voice their support for the delivery of the A5, that is taken on board. And I think that it's enormously important that we do play that role to ensure that we can make this project a reality, and the successes that can flow from that in terms of additional safety for road users, in terms of greater connectivity, and in terms of securing greater economic regeneration for the region as a whole. So, Chair, on behalf of Alliance, I'm more than happy to support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. Next up, we have Councillor Mary Gardy via WebEx.
Thank you, Chair, and we'll be brief. Just want to firstly thank Councillor Campbell and McCann and the Sinn Féin grouping for bringing this motion. We brought one ourselves regarding A4 many times back for a long time ago, but this is timely to the situation that we have presented with ourselves at the minute when we have the public inquiry. In terms of what has happened over the years, and I'm not going to repeat what others have said, but to go to a house today and to say that we have to tick all our boxes and cross all our T's and look at the environment when someone has just buried a loved one off the A5, well, I know the reaction you'd get there. I am disappointed at how the DFA have dealt with this over the years. If I had been in that position, I would have called for it. I would have taken on the ramifications of my calling. And I think we are paying the price here as a district with dead people in our graveyards as a result of not acting. And it's a failure on the government as a whole, failure on ourselves. We haven't been fit to deliver it. And I welcome this motion to engage in our own community centres and buildings so people can use it to make their submissions on this occasion. And both Councillor Campbell and Councillor McCann are absolutely right that, you know, this is disproportionately misrepresented in the public inquiry. People of a sound mind and almost too busy to make submissions get on with their daily jobs and are not protesting at every opening of every envelope. But unfortunately, because this has went on that long, we need everybody to get up and send their support for this A5, because the people have not been heard enough, and it's only these objectors that are stalling it in the long run and the fear of legal challenge that is holding it back. And ministers in the past, many of them, and over the last 15 years, have not been able to call it between one reason or another, but it's something that is vital, and there'll be more deaths on this road. That's the reality. We can sit here tonight and count about the amount that has died. There will be more, and it's on our hands, and I welcome this, but it's unfortunate that we are going to have to live through this. It's something that should have been delivered many, many years ago, and it's a failing on all of us that we haven't been fit to deliver it as public representatives, as members of parties that had public representatives of a higher level, and the Stormont, the failure that it is, it's absolutely shambolic and disgusting that we have to be here. But all we can do at this stage is use our facilities to try and encourage people to give their support for the A5. And I think it is a good idea and timely that we use our centres, and on our social media page, put it out clearly that there has been objection to this A5 that does not represent the overflowing support for it, and not even the need for it. So the SDLP party grouping will be supporting this motion and happy to do so at this stage, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gary. Just within the time, thank you. Next up via WebEx is Councillor Donald O'Coffey.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I think this is it's the whole circumstances around the A5 appears to be quite shambolic, really. My understanding is that the first time this was proposed was that back in 2007. So that's 15 years ago. And if it now proceeds, it will possibly be built as early as 2028 at a total cost of 1.6 billion. I'm not sure the money's going to be there to do it. And the question is really, after waiting 15 years to get its act together, Stormont has spent £80 million, 53 million on consultant fees, and not anything gone ahead. And there's still no action to address the serious environmental concerns around this project. The other thing to note is that if this is going to be built in 2028, in 2030, that's 2 years after it's going to be built, petrol and diesel cars will start to be phased out, and we will not be replacing them with electric vehicles. So some of them will be, but you can't replace all of them by any means. So it's not, the technology is not. We're going to be building roads for cars, which are going past their sell-by date in terms of the environment. So we're going to need a transition away from the car, and we need to be planning for that rather than planning for the battles of the past, like most generals always plan for the war that they was last fought rather than the war they're going to fight that's coming towards them. And I think as a society, we need now to think about what are the green alternatives to car-based transport, for example, rail, and electric, green electricity powered mass transit systems, which is the only future really for public transport globally. Every other country is investing hugely in this at the moment, and we're still talking about building more motorways akin to what Margaret Thatcher was doing in the 1980s and A5 dualling and so on. And all of this is taking years to go through and even more money for consultants. So I don't know, really, this whole project seems to be out of date to me. But the other question is really around the motion itself. The first bullet point, I can't really genuinely understand what's meant by it. The majority of people has been disproportionately misrepresented. I don't know what that means. Maybe somebody could explain it to me, but I can't vote for a motion I can't understand. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. You're just within your time there, Councillor O'Coffey. Okay, next up via WebEx is Councillor Mark Buchanan. You have 3 minutes, Councillor Buchanan.
Thank you, Chair. And I don't intend to take 3 minutes now, but just to come in and put on record the Democratic Unionist Party's position of support on the motion and indeed for the A5. We thank those councillors who have brought it before us, and a very important project. There's been too many lives lost already on the A5, and it is vital that it has progressed. And anything that the council can do to help that will be much appreciated by the residents of the district. So this is a positive move, and we support it. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Buchanan. And the last speaker is Councillor Sean Clark via WebEx. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I was in two minds whether to speak on this or not. But this, as people have been saying, and I remember a lot of this was going for 15 years. So I'm not sure what any more consultation we need. And I think people are just, invent distractions here about, the rail thing. Yeah, it's sometime in the future maybe, but it's been used as a stalling, delaying tactic. And let's be honest, some councils here have a very close relationship with the alternative A5 alliance. So, people need to be honest. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Clark. Very well within the time. Okay, that are all the speakers now. So there are 11 people spoke, plus the proposer and seconder. So you have 13 people speaking there. I now go to Councillor Campbell for his summation.
Okay, thank you, Chairman, and thanks to councillors from across the chamber for their support. I suppose in relation to the comment by Councillor O'Coffey, the first bullet point does say that the council recognises the majority of people in this council area are fully supportive of the A5 upgrade, and to date this has been disproportionately misrepresented at the public inquiry. So not enough people who are fully supportive of this scheme are coming forward and making their views known, but those from the Alternative A5 Alliance have been finding every opportunity they can to object and to stall the scheme. And that in part answers the comments by Councillor McAleer as well, because, I don't know who he's speaking to or where he bees, but every day somebody is contacting me or speaking to me and asking about the A5. Make no mistake about it, the evidence is not, if you're speaking to people on the ground, the evidence is very much in favour of the A5, and we want to bring that out through the inquiry as much as possible. And it wouldn't be the first time that that objectors kind of were overrepresented in the consultation. That's very common as well. So they have continually stalled, and there's been some distractions tonight, unfortunately. I mean, I'm all in favour of mitigations, as Councillor Withers has said, but I mean, the bypass we need is the A5. That's what's long overdue. And rail is mentioned. We all want rail, but take a look at the map. Take a look at where the motorways. Take a look at where the infrastructure is. Have a look at it. It's shameful. The lack of infrastructure. I agree that rail should be in place, but we deserve a dual carriageway as well, and we need to keep this on the agenda. Councillor McClahary mentioned cross-party support. I have no doubt we'll get cross-party support, as we always have in this matter, and he raises a good point about maybe working together more on joint motions. But of course we do have the A5N2 cross-border committee, and we have very good working relationships across parties on that, and we will keep this on the agenda. Myself and our chairman, Councillor McAuliffe, did have a meeting today with the First Minister designate Michelle O'Neill, and also with two chairs from neighbouring councils, Mid Ulster, Cora Corey, and also Strabane and Derry District Council, Derry Strabane District Council Sandra Duffy. So we are keen to keep this on the agenda, and I do welcome the broad support across the chamber. I would ask if it goes to a vote, which I hope it doesn't have to, but if it goes to a vote, that it's a recorded vote, Chairman, and I thank you for the time given to bring forward this motion.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Campbell. And I think by the majority of speakers, I'm going to ask, is there any formal dissent on this motion at this stage? Councillor Rainey, I'm sorry, is this dissent?
Not at all. Not at all.
No, I don't, sorry, I can't bring you in, Councillor Rainey. I can't bring you in now. We're past that stage. Sorry about that. Councillor Coffey, you're dissenting. Councillor Keenan, dissent. Yep. Okay. That's Councillor O'Coffey and Councillor Keenan both dissenting, and I take it everyone else is in agreement with the general gist of the motion. Okay, thank you. We don't need to go any further on that one. Sorry, Councillor McGuire.
Sorry, Chair, just for clarity, Councillor Campbell did indicate he required a recorded vote.
That's if
aye. Will we normally do that electronically, Chair? Just how does the way we've just voted, will it be recorded in the normal manner of a recorded vote? Just for clarification there.
It will be recorded, for we have taken it in at the have dissented, and the Chief Executive has confirmed that they have dissented. Yep, they have dissented. Okay, I'm trying to save time here as well.
Sorry, Chairman. Sorry, I think given the range of comments that were maybe not wholly supportive, I would say I would prefer that it did go for a vote, if at all possible, a recorded vote.
You requested that, Councillor Campbell. That's okay. Selena, can you set up a recorded vote, please? As in the motion as presented. Okay, in the chamber, you have your indications. Go.
It's okay, we can. She just puts it in the chat.
But Councillor Catherine Kelly, if you can put your vote into the chat function on this occasion. Okay, Chief Executive.
Okay, Chair, so you've 27 votes for and 1 abstention, so the motion is carried.
Okay. Happy enough, Councillor Campbell?
Yeah, no, I just want that recorded. Thank you. Thanks, sir.
No problem. Thank you. Okay, if we can clear the polling now, and we'll carry on. It's now 20 to 10. Please bear in mind And what we have in front of us. And we're now on to item 8, and that's correspondence, and these are all for noting. So I'm not anticipating very much debate on this, folks. I want to get this business cleared this evening, okay? So item 8.1, to note the correspondence dated the 26th of October 2022 from the Department for Communities regarding financial pressures on local government. Chief Executive.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just very briefly, this was in response to our request for additional financial support. As you'll have seen from the letter, there is no additional support forthcoming, but the Minister did unlock the COVID reserves and allowed councils to use this on cost of living. And obviously that's something we'd reported previously. The only other matter I would highlight, Chair, is we still have received no clarification on the rate support grant for this current financial year.
Okay. Can we propose and seconder to note? Councillor Roy Crawford, seconded by Councillor Matthew Bell. And all agreed.
Thank you, Chair. The next letter just from NILGA. This is really their arrangements for the new mandate. A couple of items here. Firstly, seeking an early engagement with our new council following the election, which we can progress. And then secondly, and I think this is something we would welcome, Chair, the intent for NILGA would be that they would consider submitting to the council the subscriptions really to get agreement for the term, and then we would just be able to progress that more routinely. It's something that we have also had a conversation about with some other membership-based bodies that we'll be reporting to you in due course. So again, just for members' information, and to note that we will certainly convene that meeting with NILGA as soon as is practical.
Okay, it's for noting, but Councillor Baird?
Just declaring an interest as a director of NILGA, non-pecuniary in this instance. Thank you.
We're proposing seconder to note. Councillor Paul Stevenson. Councillor John McClarty. All agreed. Councillor O'Coffey, I see you have your hand up via WebEx.
Yeah, can you put me down as dissent on that? Thank you, Chair.
On 8.2? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Chair.
Okay, no problem. And we're all agreed otherwise, yeah. Okay.
Yep, thank you, Chair.
To NET.
Sorry. Yeah, this is just a letter of thanks from NAC for the council's hosting of their recent meeting in the Town Hall, Enniskillen.
Okay, self-explanatory. Proposing seconder to note. Councillor Barry McAduff, seconded by Councillor Tommy Maguire, and agreed. Item 8.4.
Yes, Chair, this is the follow-up for the utility regulator powers. The department's referring us to their previous correspondence, so it doesn't appear there's any intent or desire to review the terms of reference or powers of the utility regulator at this stage.
Okay. Motion seconder to note correspondence. Councillor Paul Stevenson. The seconder. Oh, somebody wants to speak. Okay, Councillor Emmett McAleer.
Thanks, Chair. No, just briefly, I'll second the correspondence, and just I think it's one to keep on our radar. Just the note that if there is going to be any action on it, it'll need to be brought to a new functioning government and executive. So I do think it's something we need to be mindful of if and when that happens. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, that's proposed and seconded to note. Thank you, Councillor McAleer, and we're all agreed. Thank you. Item 8.5.
Yes, Chair, thank you. This is just regarding the elections, the polling stations that the Electoral Office has sent out. It really is a matter for parties, obviously, and candidates to have a view on. And we're just bringing it formally through the committee for information. We did circulate it to members previously.
Okay, it's been circulated, as the Chief Executive said. There's a proposed by Councillor Maguire for noting. Seconder for noting, Councillor Paul Stevenson. I think we're all agreed with noting. The two speakers via WebEx, can you please keep your comments quite short, please? Councillor Thomas Crowley.
Thank you, Chair. Just as we're talking about the Electoral Office, and I see Diana coming in and she can fill in any of the blanks that my mind will have forgotten. But on our recent visit, council visit to County Down, we were in the leisure centre, the name which I've forgotten. And in that leisure centre, we were able to view the Electoral Office having a computerized terminal there to be able to allow citizens to register to vote and so forth. And certainly this was asked for, and I know that I asked for this for quite some amount of years here since the office closed in Omagh, and we were told it couldn't happen, but yet and behold it is in County Down. So I'm proposing, Chair, that we write to Virginia McVeigh and to ask that we would have at least two here, one for Fermanagh and one for Omagh, these portable computerized terminals to cater for our citizens that have a much further distance potentially to travel to Belfast than the good folks in County Down. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have Councillor Diane Armstrong.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, and thank you to Councillor O'Reilly. On the same point, we did notice that registration booth there, and I think it's quite surprised to see that in situ. EONI took up residents from Fermanagh Lakeland Forum and Omagh Leisure Complex and the Hospital Road Community Centre between July 21 and September 21, and that was part of a static canvass process. But I would like to propose that I would like to second Thomas's proposal and also have a report back to check if there are any of those registration booths in any of the council properties. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, you're happy to second the noting and also Councillor.
Yes,
sorry,
Chair.
has been noted. Councillor O'Reilly's proposal.
Yes, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thanks again. Okay, we're all agreed with this. Councillor Barry McAduff wants to comment.
Very briefly, Chair. Chair, just seeking guidance. Is it appropriate for us then to suggest an alternative? If that's the case, I would like to explore the possibility of St Connor's Primary School in Omagh becoming a polling station, because Lammy, Brookmount Road, Tamlet Road is a wee bit inconvenienced, to have to say, with the current arrangements. So that's the type of thing we're talking about, isn't it? So if there was an appetite on the part of St Connor's Primary School, I think there is. I think geographically that would be more encompassing and more reflective of the town of Omagh. That's one
Are you
suggestion.
saying this is an add-on to what
Yep.
we have in Brook Street?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
We can certainly, if
Please do.
Chair, just in terms of the Councillor O'Reilly's proposal, which we can all obviously follow up on directly, but just to note for members, we do have provision in each of our Connect centres, one in Enniskillen and one in Omagh. However, the electoral office, it's part of their obligations to publicise these facilities. So again, we can maybe just reference that within our correspondence. I think there's been an absence of notifications around it by the electoral office. But we'll follow up specifically on the proposal as requested.
So you're making that a proposal, Councillor McAduff. We got a seconder there for that? Councillor Diane Armstrong, assuming she's going to second here. Councillor Armstrong?
Yes, Chair, unless some of the Omagh councillors would like.
Oh, there's no one else has indicated, so I think it's that time of the evening. So Councillor Armstrong, you're seconding? Okay. And are we agreed with that? Okay, that's all been agreed with that one. Okay. And we're on now to item 8.6. So please bear in mind the time, folks.
Okay, Chair, this is a further letter from Galantis Gold. A number of matters set out in the letter, I suppose referencing their previous correspondence, referencing the motion, and specifically the latter stages of the letter, offering the opportunity of engagement and a meeting with the council.
Okay, can we propose and second for noting? Councillor Roy Crawford. For noting first. You have to note it all first. Second the noting. Okay. And now we have speakers coming in, and it's Councillor Emmett McAleer in the chamber.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'm not sure of the procedure there in the order that we're taking speakers here, but no, I said I'm unsure on the order that we're taking speakers there. There was people who had indicated after me, but yet were permitted to speak
He had a
before me.
query, that's why I asked him to come in what it was. my decision to allow him on that stage.
Right, normally
Okay,
we're
one
only
here.
allowed on a point of order, but that's fine if it's a one rule for somebody else, that's okay.
One. Speak up there.
Yeah, I'm happy enough to note that and move on from this issue, and I propose that we do so. I note within this letter, point number 4 states that they employ more than 60 people at the site, yet in the recent court hearing, the evidence given by this same company said they had 20 to 22 employees. Also at point number 5, they speak of good relations with their neighbours, and I'm sure Councillor Donnelly could speak more on that, Councillor Stephen Donnelly, but since the motion we brought to December's council meeting, I've been contacted by a number of people who live in this vicinity complaining about dust, complaining about noise from explosions, complaining about damage to property, and not once have they been visited or approached by this community. So again, this lie of being firmly committed to maintaining good relations that don't exist in the first place, I would seriously question. They talk about wanting to build a positive relationship with council at item 6 or point 6, and believe this can only happen if we engage in a responsible and respectful manner. I find great interest that this has only occurred in the aftermath of the proposed motion by myself and Councillor Donnelly, and would question the motives of this letter coming forward. And finally, last week in a letter to council, they talked or claimed to have changed their management team, yet both Mr. Morris and Ronan Conway are still retained from the old management team that was so severely criticised in the health and safety judgment previously referred to in the courts. So I would not wish to see any engagement from this council, elected members or officers. This is a toxic company and we need to let them know. That's our thoughts on it.
Okay, so you're proposing no engagement. Speakers in the chamber, Councillor Victor Warrington.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I'm going to take a different approach from Councillor McAleer, certainly on the back of a lot of what he said. I think this is we're hearing one-sided stories here probably about this company. So this is an ideal opportunity for us to get this company in front of us and put whatever questions we have to them and get clarity on them. So I would be proposing that we accept their offer of meeting with the council and council officials. Anybody who doesn't want to meet with them doesn't have to. But I would certainly be proposing that we bring them in and we meet with them and clear a lot of what we have been told in the last few weeks in this council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Warrington. And now Councillor Baird.
Thank you. Sorry, my misunderstanding about procedure there. Yeah, I would concur with Victor there. I think we should meet them, and I certainly would like to visit. There's an offer there of a visit to the location. I certainly would like to take that up. I'm not going there as a nodding dog agreeing with everything, but I would certainly like to see the premises and what's going on. Can I have clarity? How many years has this project been going?
Probably around 2000 and...
Was it? It was. I mean, it followed over from the Legacy Oma Council.
Yeah.
It's just very strange all these problems are coming up now. Yeah. But as I say, I would second Victor and that we if we can go on a visit to it, we should.
Sorry, Chair, it's just to note the reference to the Legacy Oma Council. The Legacy Oma Council would have had no role in relation to the gold mine. The planning function didn't transfer to council.
I'm just thinking of the timing as to when the project began. Okay. That was my singular reference to Oma Council in relation to obviously before 15.
Way back.
So I'll let that sit. The other thing I'd just like to add, we at one stage talked about the mine in Navan and the possibility of going to that to see just what the project was like. I mean, it's contiguous to the town. I'm just wondering, did we agree to do that or was it passed by?
I will check back, Chair. My recollection is we didn't have a formal position to do so. I think there were some views expressed it may be worthwhile, but I don't think there was a formal position to do so.
Chief Executive.
Yeah, we could certainly follow up on that.
Okay. Well, We've now had a proposal from seconder that we have accept the offer from the company to meet, and whatever means, and also a visit. So, and we have a proposal by Councillor McAleer. Now go to WebEx, and first up is Councillor Stephen Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair, and I am happy to second Councillor McAleer's proposal. I think that councillors who wish to take the opportunity to engage with this company certainly have the liberty to do so. I think that we have plenty of information at our disposal to be able to make our own judgment at this stage. I do just want to take this quick opportunity, just on the basis of the letter that has been presented tonight, Chair, just to make one observation, which is that it makes reference to them having had very few negative interactions with our site neighbours over the years. And I simply just want to state, as a resident of Cavanagh, as somebody who has lived in the area for the vast bulk of my life, I would gently suggest that this is a somewhat incomplete recollection of history in the local area over the last number of years. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Next up, we have Councillor Donald O'Coffey via WebEx.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm just coming in. My reading of that letter, there's no invitation there for a meeting with the councillors, and I think it's quite an insulting letter in particular, because what the first paragraph, if you read it carefully, it says that they want to meet with the chief executive and any members of your senior executive team. It is only the only reference to meeting councillors is when the councillor is actually invited along. We offer an open invitation to both groups, which includes elected members, to visit the site when we can arrange. So there's no invitation there to meet the councillors. Like I don't know where Councillor Warrington is saying that, but
I refer you to paragraph 3, possibly. That's where it's coming in. Councillor Baird can make that proposal if he wishes, Councillor O'Coffey.
Sorry, I'm trying to understand the state of facts. You know, I was reading out what it said in paragraph 3, but that's for the invitation to visit the site. It's not an invitation to actually engage directly with them, which they seem to want to do with unelected executive officers. So I think that, you know, this is meant to be a bit of a snub, as far as I can see, to the councillors. Now, I do note that in the past, I think the current chair, Councillor McElduff, strongly opposed Cavanagh Mine almost, I think it was 27 years ago. So, you know, this has a long history. And I do also question about the Navan mine, which is a zinc mine, very different type of mining, as you probably would understand. But there are a lot of issues with the zinc mine in Navan anyway, I think, from memory. So I would certainly think that if we studied the decisions of that, the court, it's the jury, the case has been decided, and there are real concerns for the safety of workers associated with this company. They're obviously cutting corners, so I don't think we as a council should be in any way associated with such behaviour by an employer. So I'd be opposing this, and I'd call for a recorded vote if it goes to a vote. Thank you, Chair.
Well, thank you for that. I'll refer you to the last line. I look forward to hearing from you and the council members in the near future. So maybe that ties in with what Councillor Baird's thinking on this matter is. Okay.
Chair, that's not that doesn't actually say anything. That's an open invitation to council members to contact them directly. It's not an invitation to us.
With respect to you, Councillor Coffey, that's your opinion. That's your perception. Others have a different
English. That's what English means.
Others have a different view. Okay, we're gonna. Yeah, we'll extend. Okay, I think we'll get the business completed if they get a proposal seconded to extend. Councillor Bell, seconded by Councillor Paul Stevenson. All agreed? Okay, I'm sensing some dissent here, but Councillor Donnelly, could you lower your hand, please? And Councillor Eamon Keenan via WebEx.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd like to support Emmett's proposal to not engage with them. I think the problems are ongoing, contrary to what Councillor Baird has said. I remember Councillor Coffey mentioned our current spoke against it or Uh, so there has been concerns going back, he says, 20 years, at least 20 years. If we do go for a visit to the in Navan, we also the massive waste site on
Sorry, you're again, you're
mine.
cutting out there, Councillor Keenan.
Sorry?
Well, you're cutting out there. You must be moving your position,
Oh,
change your position.
Yeah.
So we're getting the gist of your comments.
So if we should all that's associated with the mine. It's just on the outskirts, just to get a clear picture comes off the mine.
Okay, we didn't get any of that, but we've got the general gist of what you're saying. Last up on this issue is Councillor Mary Garrity via WebEx.
Thanks, Chair, and I hope to just bring some commonality to the whole proceedings here. First and foremost, a trip to Navan or a trip out to this mine and costs associated even with travel and different things and expenses, we're not in a position to do that. If a member wants to go and visit Navan or wants to go out to this mine, I think they should go out themselves, and I'm sure they'd be welcomed, you know, by whoever wants to engage with them. And I think that should be an onus taken on each individual councillor if they have an interest in getting more information on it. Regarding a meeting with them, Councillor Victor's proposal, I don't see any harm, and if their wishes are to ask them in, as he clearly states, if people do not wish to engage or go to the meeting, I'm sure there's no issue with that whatsoever, and they're free to stay at home and not attend. I do imagine that if people were attending, they would be in to question them robustly. But I just think if someone wants to come to the council, regardless where they're from, I think, you know, we should be open, because we will disagree. But I certainly am in favour of any visits to anywhere, because we can't incur the costs. And again, if someone does visit the council and you're not interested in listening to them, you can stay at home and not log on or not go in. So I think, Chair, if visits to these places in the current financial climate we're in, should be undertaken by a councillor individually. If someone wants to request a group, regardless who the group is in, to make a presentation, I've no real issue. I'll attend the ones that are relevant to me and not attend the ones that are of no interest to me. So I think that would be a sensible approach forward, Chair, but of course it's up to you on how it goes ahead. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Garrity. Okay, the Councillor Warrington's proposal, could you just outline exactly your proposal? I've got the gist of it. Outline exactly what you're saying and take on board with the comments that have been made. I'll get you that up here. There, go.
Thank you. Well, what I'm saying is we visit. We invite the representatives of Flintridge Inn, and we pose any questions or any things that we want to put to them, and get explanations from them. We all know about the problems that they've had. They've been up in court. They've been fined for it. But we're going back to issues that happened. My information is 5 years ago. So let's get them in and let's hear their side of the story. And if any of the councillors want to go out and visit the mine, I'm sure they'll not mind. They'll not mind going out in their own vehicles. It's only out the road. So that's my proposal.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Warrington, for the clarification on that issue. And it was Councillor Baird seconded that, so that is clear. I hope everyone's clear on that. And it's a recorded vote has been requested by twice now, so we're hearing you. Selena, can you set up a recorded vote, please? And you can lower your hand, please, Councillor Keenan.
Chair, apologies, just for clarity, we're voting on Councillor Warrington's proposal, not Councillor McAleer's.
I thought that was quite clearly outlined, Councillor Donnelly, but that is correct.
Just seeking clarity.
Okay. Okay, go in the chamber. Just waiting on the WebEx result. Okay, Chief Executive's going to give the results.
Okay, Chair, so there were 23 votes for, 4 votes against, so the proposal is carried.
Okay, thank you. Just bear in mind, we have another couple of pieces of correspondence here to deal with. Okay, Selena, can you just close the polling, please? Thank you. And we're on now to item 8.7, and it's Department of Health, Chief Executive.
Yes, Chair, this was in relation to the Council's correspondence regarding the contract issue in Lisnaskea and specifically around Maple. So it sets out the arrangements or the notification arrangements that the department received. I'm mindful, Chair, that we did have the meeting that's referenced in the letter with SPPG on the 8th of December. Obviously that was quite a constructive engagement, but certainly quite a bit of information is shared. So it may be that members who participated in that discussion might also wish to make some proposals, but this closes us out really in terms of the department's action on our response, or on our letter, sorry, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Chief Executive. Can we first of all have a proposer and seconder to note? I know there's people want to comment. Proposed, Councillor Warrington for noting. Seconder for noting. Councillor McClarty. Seconder for noting. I think we're all agreed there. Now we go to WebEx. And first of all, we have Councillor Dr. Josephine Dehan. You have 3 minutes, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And members will be aware that the issue of general practices handing back their contract has become increasingly common. You know, it's with great regret that we understand Maple Healthcare have handed back their contract. And it's been in the media a lot. And I think the question we have to ask is, why is this? Why are so many GP practices folding? And, you know, it's a combination of factors. Workforce, there aren't simply enough GPs to cope with the demand. We know that it's been a perfect storm in terms of emerging from COVID, and also pressures with regard to mental health and the cost of living pressures and all the health conditions associated with that. Simply the demand for primary care services cannot be met. There is not the capacity within the system to meet it. There's also the problem with enormous secondary care waiting lists, and patients have nowhere else to go except to their GP. And on top of that, in our own locality, we see the temporary suspension of emergency surgery at the Southwest Acute Hospital. So it's a perfect storm, Chair. Is reassuring in its tone. But I think there has to be a recognition that there needs to be an immediate injection of support for primary care. And I would propose, Chair, that we write back to the Permanent Secretary, you know, flagging our concerns regarding the demise of primary care in our district council, but also throughout the region, and asking for immediate action to address those areas that I've highlighted. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Dr. Dehan. Next up via WebEx, we have Councillor Eamon Keenan.
Thank you, Chair.
3 minutes.
Well, 3 minutes, no problem. I do note that Peter May has said in his letter that he can assure all concerned he will continue to be provided this surrounding area. Now,
Sorry, you're distorted. Councillor Keenan, you're distorted. You're broken up all over the place. We can't get you.
Hold on a second. Any better now?
No.
So when we met SPVG,
Sorry, Councillor Keating, we're not picking you up. We're not getting you.
I don't. I'll come in.
Change your position and try again.
Okay, I'll come back in later.
Right. Go ahead now to see what you're like if you switch the PlayStation off. No, he's gone. Okay.
Hello? Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead now. Go.
Sorry, Liz. Yeah, Wi-Fi's brutal. Right. So, as I said, I do note that Peter May has said in his letter that he can assure every concern that the GM service will be continued. That's key. But when we asked
we're losing you
yeah.
again. We're losing you again. Sorry about that. We're not picking you up properly.
Okay.
Okay, I'm moving on here to the chamber now, and we have Councillor Victor Warrington.
Thank you, Chair. Well, we had quite a good meeting, which Alison alluded to, and certainly a lot of things were made clear to us. Of course, it's still an ongoing concern of really what's going forward with the Maple healthcare practice. But I think, you know, as was said that day, it's too big to close. It's providing too many people in that area. Over 14,000, I think they said that day, people use the Maple practice, and it's not certainly in a situation where it can close, especially with the fact that Rosslea and Maguire's Bridge has went in the last few years. The Maple is needed more now than ever. So we can hope that with all the work that's going, and certainly the council will be behind them and whatever we can do. But I think certainly, hopefully, in the new year, we'll get more positive news coming from that area with the Maple practice, and hopefully it can be resolved. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Warrington, and Councillor John McCloughery.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, Councillor Deacon touched upon some of the issues here. The fact that it's now over 5 years since the multidisciplinary teams and the practitioner nurses were introduced in the Strabane and Derry Federation of doctors, and it hasn't been moved across into our area, and it's shown to be a success. The workload has been reduced for the GPs, and that's a failure. And we're now seeing our GPs with even more work being placed on them. This is due to there's pressures on the hospitals. The hospitals are now sending patients home with notes on the letter, a heading on their notes called GP to follow up. And these are previously patients who may have remained in hospital for further treatment, but now they've been released with GP to follow up. So that's adding again to the workload on our GPs. And our GPs are doing their best to provide a service. And I think that we need to have a total review. And I think Councillor Green has touched upon this. We need to look at all the options we can come up with. But I believe that anything that we need to see the introduction immediately of the multidisciplinary teams and the practitioner nurses into the federation that covers this area. And I'm sure Councillor Deacon would know more about that than I would, but that's what I would like to see happen.
Okay, thank you for that. And last speaker on this issue is Councillor Donald O'Coffey via WebEx. You have 3 minutes, Councillor O'Coffey.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And unfortunately, Eamon was unable to say this, so he's managed to send me over the guts of what he was saying there. And my understanding is that, well, obviously the material in front of us from Peter May commits to the restoration of a general medical service provision, which would be something obviously local community demands. But it's my understanding at the meeting with the SPPG that there was some discussion on the possibility and the way forward involved the offering both a GMS and what they call an APMS, which is an alternative provider for medical services. And just so people, if there anyone listening to this, that's where private sector companies such as Bupa, Virgin Healthcare, or 352 Private Medical would take over the contract, i.e. a private sector privatization of the GP service. And if this was to happen, that the Lisna ski practice would be the first practice in Northern Ireland to have this form of GP provision. So what Eamon was going to do is propose that we would write to Peter May to ask if he could clarify the difference in GMS and APMS contract providers and the different style of GP provision they provide, and also whether he could give us an assurance that if the contract does go to an APMS provider, that they will not be offering a GP provision that is financed through health insurance in the Erne East area. Now, I'm happy to propose that on his behalf, but I think this raising of the hair of APMS, i.e. a private contractor arrangement, it's an indictment actually of decades of policy coming out of both Stormont and out of Westminster, which has left our health service hanging in such a way. And I just have to say, working class people had to fight for generations to get the NHS in 1948. They had to defeat fascism and win power in a landslide. And over the decades, it has been under attack, especially since the 1980s. And now we're to the very point where GP services are now, we're looking at the reality of GP services being privatized before our eyes in our own area. And I would say that people need to stand up strongly against that. So I'm happy to propose on behalf of Councillor Eamon Keenan, and I hope someone will second me. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, you've made that a proposal. Okay, we'll bring in the last speaker on this issue, Councillor Seamus Green, via WebEx. You have 3 minutes, Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in. No, that last proposal there that Councillor O'Coffey has put in, that Councillor Keenan seemingly has put up. I was at that meeting too, and I believe that question was asked by Councillor Keenan. Could a private health provider like Bupa or them, could they apply for the contract? And we were told, and this is my understanding, that yes, anyone can apply, but that would not be something that the trust or the department would be considering at all. They wouldn't be wanting that whatsoever. It would be so. Sometimes I find that there's an awful lot of scaremongering going on. Like, you think to hear Councillor Coffey there that this was a proposal that was put to us at the meeting. It wasn't. It was an answer to a question. They also said they wouldn't want to really entertain it at all. As far as I know, and what do you call it? There was plenty of other councillors there that can confirm that. And I think this old scaremongering definitely needs to stop. We're all wanting the health centre in Lisnaskea to be up and running again. But this is just whining and trying to get people scared, and that they're going to have to pay for their doctors. And that was not the tone of the meeting. Categorically, it wasn't. And if Councillor Keenan or anyone else tries to cod the people to think that that was the tone of the meeting, it wasn't. There was a lot of hard questions asked at the meeting. There was a lot of answers given, and there was a lot of half answers given. But that wasn't the tone of the meeting. So I actually take offence at that type of scaremongering, because there's a lot of people I know, and Councillor Keenan knows, and people in Erne East that are quite frightened at the minute about GP services, and to be bringing that nonsense up, I think it's beyond contempt. I'll just leave it at that.
Councillor Green, I'm just wondering, are you prepared to accept Councillor Dahan's proposal? No?
Yeah, that's fine.
You're happy enough to second that one? Okay. Okay, and I'm not allowing anyone else in via WebEx. Councillor McAleer, I hope you're going to second something here, and that's about it. Otherwise, I'm not going to allow you to keep going on.
That's my first input into this.
Well,
particular
I'm
one,
trying to
Chair.
bring the meeting to conclusion, please.
It's 10:20, I believe, another 10 minutes, Chair.
We have
but I
other
won't-
business to do, please.
That's well and good, but if you'd
Like
afford
your
me the
cooperation.
respect
Carry
of the
on.
3 minutes, I'm sure that's a good 30 seconds of it wasted there.
3 good minutes, go ahead.
Starting now, is it? Thank you. I've spoken to Councillor Keenan on this, and he raised this issue, which wasn't raised by him in the meeting. It was actually raised by those giving the talk, and I'm sure if the recording is available to Councillor Green, he's welcome to go back and recheck and re-listen to it. But I'm happy to second that proposal. It's unfortunate Councillor Keenan wasn't able to be here or to be making that proposal himself. But I think this is a hugely significant addition to what has been proposed for his area. And it's one that people do need to be mindful of and do need to be guarded against. So I'm more than happy to second that in his absence, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. So we have actually 2 proposals here. The first one to get was Councillor, it was proposed and seconded for noting, and that was agreed. Second thing was Councillor Dr. Dehan proposed flagging up concerns on the immediate issues, and that was seconded by Councillor Seamus Green. So are we all agreed on that? Agreed? Okay. And the other one was, as outlined by Councillor Donald Coffey, seconded by Councillor Emmett McAleer. It was trying to get the gist of what Councillor Keelan was trying to put across. Are we agreed on that? No.
Sorry, Chairman, could we have a summation of what that proposal was again, and my apologies? just
Okay,
because of
bring the
break
Chief
there,
Executive
very
and
brief.
clarify the whole position here.
Okay. I think, Chair, just specifically in relation to the proposal by Councillor Coffey, seconded by Councillor McAleer, it's that we would write back to the Department of Health to refer to what's known as the APMS, which is the alternative medical provision, and seek a formal assurance that they will not be considering this as part of the arrangements for within the Maple or the replacement of Maple. And referencing again the concerns around privatisation and associated matters. For completeness, Chair, my recollection of this matter in the discussion was that the the SPPG representatives referred because the question that was asked related to the Dromore Trillick situation and how the trust came to be the holder of that contract. And Dr. O'Brien set out the models that were available. So certainly my interpretation was that this was included within each contract advertisement. And as has been summarised, it was not a route that they had envisaged would likely to have take up. The other matter that was referenced for completeness, Chair, was around rural incentivisation, and also they did set out the timescale for both the ads, the interviews and the proposed decisions. I did mention at the end of the meeting, but I appreciate it was coming to a close. Dr. O'Brien wasn't in a position to respond, but I think if members were minded this evening, the interviews are due to be, I think, was on the 22nd of December, and they were proceeding quickly to a decision thereafter. We had asked for an early update following the interviews to see what the situation would be, and we didn't receive a response on that. And I think it would be important for the Council to formally communicate that request to SPPG, because clearly if there is not a successful outcome to the interviews, we don't know if we're in a similar position to Dromore and Trillick. Sorry, I've digressed slightly, but that's the summary. It was specifically around the APMS is the proposal, and seek formal assurances that this will not be considered, and the privatisation of the private operator of this facility would not be considered.
Okay.
Thank you.
I was seeing dissent on that one, so I'm going to put that to the vote. I think somebody had requested a recorded vote, so that has been granted. Selena, thank you. Okay, go. Just okay, Chief Executive.
So there were 15 votes for, 13 votes against, so the proposal is carried.
Okay, carried. Chief Executive, do you want to add something?
No, it was just, Chair, if members were minded that we'd get a formal update following the interviews on the 22nd, we just would maybe get a proposer and second accordingly if that's what you wish us to pursue.
Proposed by Councillor Warrington, seconder, Councillor Paul Stevenson. Agreed? Okay, thank you. Okay, if you can clear the poll, Selena, please, thank you. Now we're on to item 8.8.
Thank you.
Solas and Nulga.
Yeah, well, Chair, this is just the NILGA, the Local Government Conference, which will be held on the 23rd of February next year, and on the theme of responding to future challenges. We'll be bringing this obviously to your attention anyway, members, but it's just to highlight it is being held in Silver Birch Hotel here in Omagh. We often make representations to conference organisers to hold more events west of the Ban, and it may be something that members would wish to support given that it's in the district. And you'll see the cost or the price for attendance is £99. We would be seeking, when the programme is finalised, Chair, that we would certainly be nominating a couple of officers as appropriate to attend.
Okay, that's probably maybe not for decision now, but we can propose to note it, or we can take. Councillor Bell, you're proposing to note. Seconder for noting, Councillor Roy Crawford. Agreed. Okay, noted. If you want to put forward nominations this evening, or do you want time for that? Okay, we can. If you have any nominations, they can be forwarded. Sorry, Councillor Baird's coming in now. Hold on.
Well, I mean, I would propose that the NILGA office or the NILGA directors would be appropriate people to attend.
Okay.
And anyone else who has an interest, bearing in mind that's in here.
Mm-hmm. You're proposing the NILGA directors, okay. Have a seconder for that? Mr. McAduff?
Just had a different point. As chair, I would be prepared to make a civic welcome if that's appropriate for a conference in our council area. That would be different.
The norm.
Aye. Thank you.
Problem. Just you're happy enough to second Councillor Baird's proposal, and what are you happy? Well, now who am I to argue with that one? Go.
If I could just formally propose what Barry suggested, that the chair should perform a civic welcome.
Right, okay. Okay. Still need a seconder for the NILGA officers, Councillor Roy Crawford. And I assume that we're all agreed with those two proposals. It's getting late. Okay, thank you. Dissent from Councillor Donald O'Coffey. And I'm not taking any more, so if you could put down your hand, Councillor Feely, at this stage, please. Okay. Any other correspondence?
Yeah, just sorry, Chair, there's just one item of other correspondence and some good news. It's just funding that the Council has received from the Department for Communities regarding the Access and Inclusion Programme. We've uploaded the letter of offer, but it will include contributions to the Changing Places facility at Omagh Leisure Complex, the sensory room at Omagh Leisure Complex, the sensory garden at Castle Park Lisnaskea, and basket swings across our accessible play park. So I know particularly our access and inclusion officers work particularly hard on those applications, and we'd welcome. So for information, Chair, but we'd obviously be seeking approval to accept the funding.
Okay, proposer and seconder to note, please, first. Councillor Paul Stevenson, seconded by Councillor Emmett McAleer, and agreed. Speakers, a lot of speakers coming on this one. We're going to be out of time. Sorry, can't delay it. We're going to have to close. Meeting closed.